Just when I thought I couldn't find my way out, yeah, I searched the God in me to find my way out. I know it can seem way out, but the Creator flows to and through me from way out. I'm talking way out, yeah, yeah, yeah. See, if you believe in the God in you, it's a better place. Creating the force and the power to live a better life. Know that love and joy and peace is one in all of the same space. That you were chosen just like God. That's right. Only you can make the change. Shake your head at you. Shine so bright from darkness to light. Hey, hey, hey. From darkness to light. Yeah. And you'll find your way out. Yeah, yeah. Oh, it won't seem way out. Yeah, yeah, yeah. The power of God will flow through you from way out.
Welcome. This is Alchemizing Energy, and I'm your host, DJ Genesis. Today, we are going to review a live stream, an actual debate held by 607 Unc and Jabari Osage, who is a Kemetic priest, and 607 Unc, who is a Gnostic. And I think it's really interesting to really get into the different aspects of understanding of religion and how people see things. So I wanted to actually cover this. So let's go into this stream with 607 Unc and Jabari Osage. Let's go.
Belief is what man thinks is true, so of course you don't know.
Okay.
There's no way you can know if you hold belief.
You've had your dick sucked?
Right, listen, I'm not. Do you want to suck my dick?
No. Have you ever on a hot day had like a cold glass of iced tea after you've been sweating all day?
Listen, I'm gonna say this.
This just don't feel like
I don't really want to talk. Iced tea is a mistake. See, iced tea was created like this. They came over with hot tea. Listen, they came over with hot tea and it was so hot, and he made it by fucking mistake. Iced tea is a mistake. It was hot tea first. Not for real. It's a mistake. So a lot of times mistakes be good for people, right? Did your AI fact check that, nigga? I guarantee you go, yeah. It's a mistake, right? And AI know that because AI can they can watch this history. They can kind of see what's going on.
You said I couldn't taste shit.
It's a mistake. What is taste? You can't taste in your dream.
What is the dream thing? We're not in a dream, are we? Is this a dream?
You tell me. What's the difference between this reality and the reality in your mind? I suggest this whole reality come from you. I suggest that you playing every character here right now. I suggest no one here outside of you.
I'm creating all these characters.
Yeah.
Oh,
listen, right now, Sean, say something.
Yo.
Now you say what he just said in your head in his voice.
Hold on. What am I doing?
You say what he just said in your head in his voice.
Not out loud though.
No.
Man, I just did it. So I'm gonna tell you what, 607 Unc is onto something. I think that he gets really misunderstood because of all the other shenanigans he does. But when you really listen to him, he really kicks some true facts
in your head, in his voice.
Okay.
Did it work?
What do you mean? Did it work?
Did you hear his voice in your head?
Yeah.
You created his voice.
I mean, I remembered it.
You created it from the start.
But
from
if
the
I
start,
didn't hear it, I couldn't have redone it.
Look, from the start, you created it. You couldn't hear it unless you created it, right? But you don't see that. You think that this earth exists with just you solely, but you don't exist inside your body. Right now, you know where I'm at? Do you know?
I don't think
do you know where I'm at right now? Do you know where I'm at? I'm everywhere. Everywhere here is me now, right? Because I can't see my face.
But I've created you.
Oh no, I'm everywhere. I'm everywhere. I can't be faded or destroyed.
But you can see them on the screens.
Oh no, see, I don't think I'm saying the screen is a different reality. They tell you that's virtual reality. What kind of reality is that? What they call it? Metaverse? That's a different kind of. That's a different world. See, we live in worlds inside of worlds inside of worlds. So I don't think you understand. You think you just live in one, but it's multiple realities, right? You got to know how to live in all of them. I take you to the hood. They're gonna think you the Dauphin or police. There's no other choice for you. I'm keeping it real. There's no other choice. They can't determine.
You can do both, I guess.
No. You either one or the other because based on their perception, that's all you can be.
So what happens at death then? If in the prison planet,
there is no death.
So we're stuck in prison forever.
We're stuck inside what they call. How can I say it? Should I tell them? No, we stuck inside God. Well, if that's what you want to call it, or the energy. We're stuck inside what you call God. Some people call it Allah, Jesus, Buddhist, Confucius. They got different names for it. But we stuck inside it.
But you say stuck.
Yeah, stuck.
So then what's outside of that? What is outside of the prison planet?
There's nothing outside of this. Listen, all right, so it tell you this. It say when it say in the Bible, God created heaven, it say he created heaven and he stayed in heaven. It say he created this shit and he stayed here. It never said he's outside of this. There's no outside of the universe. Everybody tell you this. There's no outside of the universe. You can't go outside of it because there's no outside. It's only inside.
So is Mars a prison planet? Like, is everything prison?
What do you mean?
I'm saying, do you believe in other planets, or that's bullshit too?
I'm gonna say this. Only time you
Don't
worry
touch
about
that.
listen, the planet's gonna determine where you from. Why think they got zodiac signs? So the planet gonna determine where you from. Okay, cool. You from Mars, then you know how you act according to the zodiac sign. What's that white nigga name to do all that shit? Bring him back. Yeah, bring that nigga back. He'll tell you about the planets and shit. I'm gonna tell you about you.
That's your boy,
Yeah,
Gary.
I didn't know my boy. I don't got no boy. Everything is me. I don't think you understand. Right? But we stuck inside of prison because you can't get out.
And the warden is Trump.
Well, right now, but I'm gonna tell you this. A lot of people suggest that it's like
well, right
13
now,
families that's running everything. But I suggest that it's the original. I'm gonna say this. A lot of people ain't gonna like this, but I'm gonna say this. It's the original black man. Because the black man don't know who the fuck he is. He don't know. Like the black man goes out. I'm from Africa. Where you from? Well, they know they was here, but they know they got here because we know that we gave Indians certain shit while the Indians was here. So we know that we popped up here, but we don't know where the fuck we came from. But they're gonna say you came from Africa. They're gonna take me to Africa. They're gonna say, oh shit, this nigga not African. So what the fuck is this nigga? Where the fuck did he come from? Right?
Do you ever done like genealogy, the ancestry.com, and where are your people from? You can look it up.
Show me your hair.
My hair?
Yeah.
I don't even know what that means.
Show me your hair.
Bro. I think you're
show me your
I
hair.
know eyes don't work and nothing's real. It's here. You want to pull a piece out?
Okay, so what's this? If that's hair, what's this?
The uglier hair.
No, not ugly hair. Listen, no. So what you have is probably the same thing a dog have.
What?
No, I'm keeping it real. It's not hair. You have the same.
He's trying to say he had fur. That's funny. Let's go. He's trying to say he had
hair, okay, right? Because you mix with dog, pig, and monkey.
Me?
Yeah,
bro. What?
You're a human,
and you're not.
You were created to work.
I'm with a wait. What am I?
I don't think you get it.
You said I'm a dog, a pig, and a monkey.
Yeah, that's what I'm, mama. That's what you are. But they looked it up. They tried to look your genes up. The AI fact checking this.
If AI tells me I'm part donkey and pig, listen, I'll give you $100,000.
But I'm not. Listen, I'm saying this. But let me say this something about you. You that, but you don't have no land here. See, look, it's something.
He said, if AI tells me I'm a donkey and a pig and a, I'll give you $100,000.
Strange about me and you, because me and you both don't have a land here. We take everything here. You go take shit, replace shit. But where the fuck are you from? Is it a white land? Right? Listen, we have a German Shepherd. I'm gonna tell you where the fuck a German Shepherd is from. The fucking dog is from fucking Germany. Where the fuck the white man from? We don't know. Where the fuck the black man from? We don't know. Right? We don't know.
Black people are from Africa, and then white people are from Caucasus.
No. Take me to Africa. They're gonna tell me I'm not from there because Africa was broke up. Listen, Africa was broke up. Africa was broke up by you guys. Y'all broke Africa down in sets. Y'all named it based on trade, based on what y'all was getting from each particular part. Africans never called themselves Nigerians and shit like that. You guys did that shit.
Right?
They didn't do that.
Right?
That came from you. Right? Because you're kind. You're kind.
But you said the black people are the ones running the show.
Listen, I'm gonna say this. Black people.
12 families.
I'm saying this. Yeah. No. Them the white families that the black people control. I don't think you understand.
So the black people are controlling the white families. You're saying?
Of course.
It's not of course.
I'm telling you for real.
I mean, I believe that you believe it, but don't act like I'm
no. I no belief. I'm telling you what I know is true because everybody know this. You gonna go different places. They're gonna say, "Oh, these people on these lands just disappeared. They just disappeared. These people just disappeared." The crazy ass Hebrew Israelites, they think it's them. I ask the Israelites, they say they're the chosen people. They think that the people that everybody looking for is them. That's what they think. But it's the people that have been lost, have been tricked. Because the worst thing they can do is take something from you, hide it from you, and the whole time it's stealing you. Right? So the whole time they hid it from me, but the whole time it was still stuck in me. That's why I don't read now. Listen, I don't even read. The priest was trying to make me read. Tell this nigga don't try to do it no more. I don't read. No, for real. I won't read shit. Now I read people and I read energy, right? And I read frequencies and shit. I don't read books.
Do you believe that you're in the
prison
planet?
I don't believe shit. Stop playing. I don't believe shit.
What do you mean?
I'm saying this.
Are you in the prison planet? Let me word it that.
I'm saying this. You probably are. I'm here having an experience, right? So I'm having an experience. I'm having a human experience here, right? Because when I this body supposedly died, whatever inside of me is gonna move past the body, right? So this is like a video game. I'm playing it, right? But people don't understand how to play. So that's why people here and they complaining, right? And they don't want to accept it as a prison. I knew a lot of niggas in prison would never accept that they was in prison, right? They wouldn't accept it. They thought they was in the streets, so they started fucking fags. Yeah, they thought they was in the streets. Yeah, they wouldn't accept that they was in prison. You ain't supposed to do this, but they bending niggas over.
Okay,
you would have got bent.
All right, hold up. First off, no.
Okay,
I'm not getting bent over and fucked. All right, if this is a prison planet, there's every baby.
How he answered you would have got bent over.
That's what it is. They're in prison for their energy is stuck in this realm forever.
Listen, it's two things that happen. Every time, everybody notice if you watch this, you did this and stop lying. Every time you went to jail, you cried. Every time you're born, you cry. Right? It's like the same reaction. I'm telling you, I don't think you understand.
But I stubbed my toe and I cried. I don't mean I'm in prison.
I don't think you understand, right? Get out. I mean, get out. You can go so far. Even right now, you can't go across the border. You can't leave America without a passport.
Thank you,
Right?
Celia.
So right now, no one watching this in America can leave America without a passport. Tell me you're not in prison.
That's some governmental boundary bullshit.
Yeah, it's prison. It's prison. This is prison. You cannot get out, and you cannot justify the fact that we all in prison. The only way to get out is in. Right?
When
you don't accept everything without, you go within, because it's one thing that's kind of like in everything. And a lot of people don't know this. It's one thing that's in everything. There's only one thing that's in everything. In happiness and pain and sadness, there's only one thing: peace.
Peace?
See, yeah, peace is in the bottom of everything, because that's the only thing that's in everything. So if you find that peace, then you become free. Free is peace. Right? But a lot of times, I'm from the streets, gang. We confuse peace with boredom. Man, nigga, I'm bored as a bitch. Stop playing with. I need something to move.
You're addicted to the chaos.
Yeah, exactly. We're addicted to it. Let me tell you a story. Right? A lot of people watching this, they probably don't understand the story. But if you understand the story, you're gonna understand how everything I say is true. Right? No, for real. It was 5 monkeys. Right?
Okay,
no,
5
5
monkeys.
monkeys.
Now I'm following.
There's 5 monkeys.
Okay.
They locked them down in the cave. Right? They took what's that name of that thing that got little steps on it? No, not an elevator. That's got to move that. What's that thing? A ladder. Yeah. They took a ladder right there, right? They took a ladder. They put a ladder there, and then at the top of the ladder, they took some bananas there, right? Okay. And so the monkeys start climbing for the bananas. They sprayed them with water. Sprayed that bitch down. They sprayed them down. Every time they went up, they sprayed them down. Boom. So now the monkey said, look, don't go for that, basically in their head. So one monkey grabbed for it. They went and grabbed him. They sprayed him down. He went down. Listen, so now every time one grabbed him, they ain't got to spray him. The other monkeys is fighting him. They replaced all the monkeys one by one by one by one. Now they got brand new monkeys in there. None of them never been hit by water, but none of them touched a banana.
And they don't even know why.
They don't even know why. And that's what's going on here, right? See, people don't ask questions. Listen, I'm gonna say this. If you got a belief, you got to ask, why did they give it to me? Where did it come from? And what the fuck they're trying to get me to do? Because every belief, every stipulation that you got was for somebody else and not for you, unless you gave it to you.
Well, you say you don't read.
I read people.
So you get downloads. What if you get the wrong download? How do you know the
downloads a computer? I read people. Listen, I'm gonna say this. If you probably don't understand this, but you probably do understand this. But if you ever been to the streets, gang, I'm from the trenches, gang, and I can have 5, 6 niggas with me. We walk in the room. It's time to rob this bitch. We speaking. We speaking. We speaking, nigga. Nigga, we speaking. Before you know it, the shit up on you. And you on the ground. How the fuck I ain't hear nothing? No, you ain't hear nothing. Because this don't have to be moved.
There's a lot of communication happening without
words.
Of course.
A lot of the information, listen, most of the communication in the world is nonverbal.
Yes.
Right? Because listen, it happened in the mind.
That's the first true thing you said all day.
Okay, everything I said, it don't matter. Everything I said is true and false at the same time. Because in every lie, it's a truth in it, and every truth is a lie in it.
Let's wrap this up.
Yeah. All right. Well, you're wrong. Good luck with that.
If you learned anything from this episode or got any value at all, please share this episode
you're wrong. Good luck with
that. It helps us grow the channel. It helps us grow the podcast. It means a lot.
The answer to that is you're wrong. Good luck with that. What?
I'm not going to do this. I mean, this don't make sense.
This guy?
Yeah.
All right.
Everything. No, let's go. Let's go.
Hey, man.
You in white and I like you. Know what I'm saying? It don't make sense because you probably gonna say the same thing I'm saying. I don't think you're gonna disagree with me.
And they pretty much
sometimes on some things, but most of the things, hey, if I
let's cut to the chase.
Yes, sir.
Jesus. Some people say that Jesus never died, and I would agree with that because Jesus never lived.
Jesus did definitely live.
Jesus is a mythological figure.
No, there's over 25,000 manuscripts that prove the existence of Jesus. There's more proof on Jesus.
Manuscripts?
There's more proof on the existence of Jesus than there's proof on the history of Julius Caesar.
Name one of those manuscripts.
I can tell you that Tacitus was
Tacitus.
How would you spell it?
You don't know I'm a historian.
Okay, go ahead. So the Roman historian.
Just agree, just not.
I'm just telling you. I'm saying the Roman historian.
Yes.
Proved that Pilate was the one behind the execution of Jesus Christ.
That? How did he do that?
Yes, he did. He wrote it. He followed the history up with it.
What year
so it was
did
documented.
Tacitus write that?
This is in around 500 AD.
Okay, and what year would you attest to Jesus living?
That was 2,026 years ago, based off of American history.
Let's give us your AD again. Come on now.
Go ahead. For his death is 33 AD, and that's recorded with the red moon, and that has been proven as well.
So you're arguing that someone that wrote something nearly 500 years later is the person that you want to cite for historicity? Is that what you're saying?
So who are you going to cite for history that hasn't lived thousands of years as well? History is still facts at some point, even if it's recorded later on in time. Just because it's had prolonged time doesn't mean that it's not true.
Okay. I knew your great-great-grandfather. Do you believe me?
No.
Why don't you believe me?
Because you weren't living at the same time.
Oh, wait a minute, brother. Are you on my side or are you on your side?
But you said you're a historian.
You
so
just
what's
said
the point of studying
you just
history?
invalidated Tacitus.
Go ahead.
No,
so who is your historians that you look
give
up
them
to?
another shovel.
I'm just telling you.
Tell me, you just invalidated.
So you're
Tacitus.
a historian. You're a
Yes,
historian,
I am.
and you're tearing apart history. For what reason?
No, I'm not tearing apart history. I'm giving you a corrective
Is he tearing
analysis
apart
of
history?
So please go ahead and start your analysis.
I'm telling you that just as you told us, Tacitus did not live during the time of Jesus.
That's correct.
And so you're
That's
saying
correct.
that he should be used as a citation for his historicity. But you're claiming, by the way, it wasn't 500 years. He got that date wrong. But we're going to go with
which date was it? No, go ahead.
No, we're going to go with your wrong date.
I would like to know
when
which date
someone
it
is
is.
digging, give them a bulldozer.
I'm giving you the bulldozer. I'm giving you the keys.
It's your
I'd like to
bulldozer
know.
'cause you're digging. You're
I
digging.
appreciate it.
I'm not
so
digging.
thank you. I'd like to
I'm
know
looking
the
down at
correct
the whole
time.
thing. Are you sure you want another one?
So I would like to know the correct time if you do genuinely
let me
know.
just say to you,
because
you
I
said
don't
that
want it
there
to
were
just be
20
something that's a statement.
Well, let me say this.
Go ahead.
You said there were over 25,000 manuscripts proving the historicity of Jesus.
Correct.
I asked you to name one, and you invalidated it. Name another.
I didn't invalidate it.
You just said
I'm telling you that
you
this
don't
is
believe
still
you don't believe that I knew your great great grandfather because I didn't live during his time.
because you don't have any knowledge on my great
How do you know
grandfather.
that?
So go ahead, please tell me.
How do you know that I don't?
I would like to see if you
Your
do.
reason is because you said I didn't
You
live
are
during
still-
his time.
okay.
Tacitus didn't live during Jesus'
But
time.
your angle of trying to have a debate by just prompting yourself to say
I'm
that
gonna
everything
help
I'm
you.
saying is wrong.
Give us another one.
I would like
25,000
to-
is a large
No,
number.
I'm
Give us
asking
another.
you. I'm asking you to go ahead and tell me your basis of knowledge
What I'm
instead
saying
of
to
just
you is,
discrediting everything I'm saying. Because
how
Go
about I'll cut to the chase.
Yeah, sure.
Let's be very clear. We have no physical evidence and no textual evidence for a literal historical Jesus Christ. And
John
to go further,
20,
wait, hold
24.
on.
Okay, go ahead. I was going to say that he came in the flesh and there
Let's
were
go further.
witnesses.
Wait. Let's go further. Let's
Yes.
go further.
He's using the Bible
Let's
as a
also
source.
recognize that
That's not
much
the
of that Jesus story is present in an earlier tradition.
Yeah.
The deity of resurrection was a deity that people worshipped, recognized for thousands of years before there was ever a Jesus.
And how do you believe that to be true?
Well, I mean, I'll take you on my next trip to Kemet so you can see the artifacts.
Well,
They
I'm just
exist.
asking. I would like to know, how do you believe those artifacts?
I just
you weren't
told
there.
you. I just told you that
You weren't
we
there
have-
when they were
we have
made. That could have been
artifacts.
man-made. That could have
What's
been
an
man-made.
What's an artifact?
Something that was found from the previous dated time.
From that
in history.
period?
Yeah.
Okay. What is the artifact that
Have you
for
ever
Jesus?
heard of falsified fossils?
Are
That
you
some-
attempting to argue that the artifacts that we find
Can be
that
altered?
that are not questioned by any reputable scholar, any archaeologist, are falsified because what's your name again?
Roe.
Because Roe said so?
No, I'm not saying
Oh,
because
okay,
Roe
all
said
right,
so.
all right,
I feel.
all right.
See, that's the implication.
I'm saying to you
I
that
think
we
I'm
have
being very clear in my
artifacts for
question.
this for all of these, all of the information I'm giving you, and I'm
Yes.
going to tell you that before there was ever a Jesus, before there was ever
There
a
are
Yeshua,
still pieces
before
of
there
his
was
cross
a
in
Yeshua,
existence.
there are pieces of his cross.
Yes, in
Where?
existence. They're spread out amongst the people.
Okay.
What?
That was the plan
And
to
you
be
believe
spread
that-
out
and
amongst
you-
the people.
They
'cause
were
Christianity
spread out
wasn't to
amongst
be
the
a man-made
people.
book.
And
It
you
was to follow
believe-
Christ
So
himself.
you believe who put the cross up?
Jesus carried his own cross up.
No, I didn't ask you who carried it. I said who put it up.
Some of the Romans that were working
You're
under Pilate.
suggesting that the Roman centurions gave it out to people like favors at a birthday party?
No, I'm not saying that.
They
This
cut
was
it up
a
like the
sacrifice.
world.
This was
Do
a
you
sacrifice.
think that they have pieces?
This was
of the cross?
This was a
it out
sacrificial
to people.
ritual that they had. They had members that went up to the cross after he died when he was taken down and he was put inside of the tomb.
I know you don't know me,
Go
but
ahead.
usually this is the moment when I put up a sign that says source. Imagine it says
Yeah.
source here.
The
What's your
Bible.
source for that?
My
The
source is
Bible
the
says that
Bible
they
for
gave
that.
out the cross,
No, I'm saying the pieces of the cross were spread out.
and that's in the Bible.
What
Sure.
book?
Go for it.
What passage is that from?
I'm trying to
Oh,
tell you
boy.
from John 20:24. Jesus came back when he returned. And that's when Thomas was questioning his existence, if he was really there or not. And Jesus
So in
told him,
John
peace be with you.
20:24,
Hold on.
It says that they gave
He
out
said,
pieces of the cross.
hold on. He said, peace be with you. And that's when he invited him to reach his finger inside the hole in his hand.
I hope this AI is putting up.
Oh, it's
2024.
popping off right now.
Did it?
I hope it's
Did
putting
it
up
confirm
2024.
John
It's
2024?
popping off right now.
Please.
2024 says they gave out pieces of the cross.
I did not say that he gave
Yes,
pieces
you
of the
did.
cross. I'm telling you about Jesus' existence when he returned. After that, the disciples made their agreements of what they were going to collect from the death site of Jesus. And that's what they passed on.
Here's another question.
That one
Here's
got
another
contradicted.
Which one?
John 20. You said John 2020 or
John 20:24 is what I said.
Uh-oh.
I know. Picked up John 20:20.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I said John 20:24 when Thomas was questioning Jesus'
They gave out
existence.
pieces of the cross.
No, I'm telling you the
I
steps
asked
of
you
how
for
that
your
goes.
source
Okay. Yeah.
of how the cross was given out to people.
My source for that is because of the pieces that have been retrieved that people still hold on to.
Did you know
that have been carbon dated?
Did you know that?
Yes.
Did you know that there are over 31 churches in Europe that say that they have the Holy Preface? Do you know what the Holy Preface is?
No.
Ooh, who knows what the Holy Preface is? The foreskin of Jesus. Do you believe that they have the foreskin of Jesus?
No, I do not.
You don't
that.
believe it?
I
But
do
they
not
have
believe
it.
they have the foreskin.
But
of
they
Jesus.
have it.
But that's not my reputable source that I'm going.
Oh,
with.
that's not a
That's
reputable source?
disgusting.
You better tell
That's
the leaders of
disgusting.
those churches.
I will tell the leaders
It's
of
a
those
holy
churches.
relic.
That is disgusting.
It is a holy
That's
relic.
Okay, so where's your stance on Jesus?
I gave you a very clear stance.
Go for it.
Jesus never died because Jesus never lived.
So
He
you're
is a
saying,
mythological figure.
but you're saying that the figure that was speaked about previously before Jesus, that also resurrected and went to hell. You're saying that figure
Asar is also a mythological figure.
So okay, I'm
I
just
want to be
confirming.
clear.
I'm
I'm not
I'm just
arguing that
confirming
Asar,
to see if you.
Some of you may know this name is Osiris. I am not saying that Asar or Osiris
Yeah.
was a literal physical person. This is a mythological figure. And that story that you know as Jesus
Yeah.
is an echo of an earlier story.
Correct.
And the reason why you
Correct.
don't know truly the story of Asar is because the early Christians destroyed it.
I do know of the stories of Osiris. I do know the stories of Amun-Ra. I have looked into the Book of Enoch. So I am in agreement.
The
Look,
book of
this is-
Enoch has a story of
No,
Asar.
I'm not saying that. This
Where
is just
would he-
another
Why
side.
you mention Enoch?
I'm just saying this as a side note, just in
Okay.
case if that's where you're going to go next.
No, I wasn't going to Enoch.
just in case.
Okay.
Okay, I'm taking.
I'm going to give you
precautions.
some credit
Hold on.
reading Enoch, by the
So,
way.
but okay, so I'm
Because
saying
it's not in your canon.
So I'm of course, but what I'm saying is I follow Christ in the sense of following the purposes and the practices that he spoke of, not following the entire book of Christianity.
Okay.
That's what I was being clear of in the beginning.
That's good.
So that's where I'm coming from on my practice.
So then you agree with me that Jesus is a mythological character.
I do not believe that he's
Whoa!
a mythological
Made a left.
character.
You
No,
made a left.
not a
Get this man a
mythological character.
GPS.
Not
So
a
explain to
mythological
me
He
character.
said, "Get him a
I did not
GPS."
say that Jesus Christ
is a
lived in
historical
existence.
character.
Jesus Christ lived in the flesh.
Okay.
And that's why when you use his name to wrap up any of your words, it's a spiritual protection and guidance from any of the dark energies that are around you.
First of all, there was no J's. There's Jesus Christ. would
He
be
was at
his-
the tomb and he
Because
walked.
there's no
That's why he doesn't have
J's
a
at the
gravesite.
top.
He's not dead. He still exists. And that's why he told you that you have that channeling. You have the power to go ahead and channel Jesus inside
His
of you.
body ascended into heaven.
Jesus, J, Jesus. Ain't no J.
I didn't get upset.
I want to go see it.
He's
I wanna
not
put
dead.
flowers on the
He's
grave.
not dead. He
I-
left
I
the
wanna go
tomb.
put flowers on the tomb.
He left the tomb.
Take me to the tomb.
But he left the tomb.
Where is it? I'm gonna go put flowers there in remembrance. Because
Okay.
my grandfather is dead. We know that he lived.
So we'll go
He
to
got a
Jerusalem.
tomb.
We'll go
I
there.
can go put it. I can go put some roses on.
But
there
how
right
do
now
you
if I
know
want
he's
to.
in there?
You can't take me.
But you don't know he's in there.
He's
How
a
do you know?
mythological
How do you know your
character.
grandfather's in that grave?
They could open
How
the
do you-
grave.
How do you know
But
Jesus in the
People open
grave?
graves all the time.
And a lot of times bodies aren't inside of there, are they?
I don't know about a lot of times.
What are you
Most times the
talking
bodies
about?
are still there.
How many times are they really opening these grave sites?
What do you mean? People get exhumed all the time.
But you're saying that they're opening them and there's always a body inside there.
No, I didn't say there was always. I said
Okay,
most of the time those
but
bodies
most of the
are
time
there.
there's also
And the thing
grave
is-
robbers, and they've also found out that they're harvesting
Most
organs
of the time
and
there
bodies.
are grave robbers.
Go ahead. Yes.
Boy, you
So
need
what does
some
that have to do with
Oh
Jesus?
man. Okay.
Most of the time, family, you better get to the cemetery
Go ahead.
immediately.
Okay.
Because this brother,
Because-
Ro, just said that your grandpappy's body is missing.
That's
You better
okay.
get over there.
And if they find out that they are missing, then what? This is a part of the
Well,
program.
then maybe they'll call them Jesus because his body isn't here either.
Ha!
Oh, okay.
Unless you believe in the holy preface.
But Jesus did walk afterwards. Did we see that Bible
Did
verse?
Jesus
for
walk afterwards?
Yes, for John 20:24. Did we see
Can
that
I ask you a
Bible verse
question?
pop up yet? About Thomas?
When was John written?
John was written hundreds of years after Jesus'
Okay.
existence.
And was it originally called the Book of John or called something
No,
else?
it was not originally called
So
the Book of
why
John.
are
That's
you
in the King
using
James.
an anonymous book from a later period as a source for historicity?
But we don't have any accurate sources there
Thank
for
you.
history.
You
if
said
that's-
something correct.
But no, what I'm saying, there for all history.
No, not true.
For all history.
Not true.
Because what are you basing it off of?
Okay.
There's always translation.
Well, where
Everything-
is the body at?
Everything
Come
has
with-
to be.
Come with me
Go ahead.
to Kemet, and
Yeah.
I will show you hundreds of bodies that have been studied of people who were buried.
But how do
And
you
we
know that
who
the
they
information
are.
is
Hold on.
accurate?
We know who they are. We even have bodies of their relatives, their ancestors. We have tombs. We have all of the material culture that exists. None of this we have for Jesus.
But how do you know that those names are correct? How do you know that the history
There
is
were
correct?
early Christians that also argue what I am arguing, that Jesus was not a literal character. And unfortunately, they actually were laughing at the people who were doing the historical orthodoxy. They were saying they have no idea what they're talking about. And then they realized they were being wiped out. You are actually following the tradition of very powerful Europeans who sought to make this story literal.
But this story was also taken literal in Chinese culture, in African culture. There's different depictions of Jesus of multiple
races.
races.
Get to China?
But I'm saying there's different depictions of Jesus in multiple races. You can go ahead and you can find the depictions of
when
Jesus.
Did Jesus get to China?
It's not just white Jesus. You guys have this thing against white Jesus. There's different. No, he can't.
Bro, I knew your great-great-grandfather. I knew
he's of a darker skin.
I knew your great-great-grandfather. We used to shoot dice on the corner.
I don't understand why.
Drink a little bit
because of the fact that you guys are against white Jesus. Thank you. Thank you.
I want to be very clear. I want to be very clear. If you are aware of the traditions that are earlier than Yeshua, and then you looked at the clear paucity of evidence. Of credible evidence for Jesus.
That it possibly happened multiple times.
Wait a minute. And then you looked at the fact that the early Christian church sought to destroy the Kemetic tradition. You would begin to say something smells fishy, and it would not have been the fishes multiplied by your Savior. You need to understand. Was that blasphemous?
Yeah, that is blasphemous.
Okay. What is blasphemy?
You're saying it in a sense to mock and disrespect.
No, I'm not mocking. I'm not mocking.
But
I'm
saying the fish that fishy, like the fish
is mythological, is what I'm saying.
I just feel like you have a very predetermined mindset.
Okay.
And I'm not in disagreement with it. What I'm saying to you is, if you're saying that it's falsified because it might have happened in different occasions in history.
No, that's not what I said.
Okay, so I'm trying to clear it up. So if you're saying that this happened previously before Christ, so it doesn't mean that it had to be true, because there's also history that Osiris went through the same resurrection process. Does that not mean that the resurrection process happens multiple times in existence of Earth? That means that Simeon Toko can be another form of Jesus Christ. There can be other Jesus Christ that come in multiple fashions. It does not mean solely that that was the only time. Would you be in agreement to that or not?
Slowly coming to the light.
This is my point I've been trying to say.
You are Jesus and you are Asar, but neither of them are literal. Neither of them are historical.
How is it not historical if it's not?
I'm not saying
we're covering it now. This is a part of history.
I'm not saying that you can't actually say that you are a follower of Jesus or a follower of Asar. Right. I'm just saying when you try to make it a historical story, you do that with overwhelming religious bias. And when you look at the historical analysis, there was no Jesus.
But if there is different coverage that's beyond history from the Bible, does that still not count as history? If other people are reporting and covering and talking about Jesus, we're in the year 2026 AD.
How many?
Anno Domini. Hold on 1 second. We're in 2026 AD. We're all in agreement to this. If we're not in 2026, what year are we in? Wait, can you tell me what year is China in?
Wait, let's
but that's still
let's
AD, right?
Ethiopia is not even in
Anno Domini.
They're on another time frame.
It's 13 months actually, so you got to go by the correct calendar. Right?
So
based on what calendar? It's different calendars.
But it's still AD, right?
No, it's 1446 this year.
1446. Where'd you get that from?
You got to take away the time they stole. You got to take away the fact that it's actually 13 months. So take away all of that, right? And then we take away the time they stole and they replace history, you're gonna come up to the same year.
1446. I please would like to see the math on that. But
I'm going to tell you something interesting. I'm going to tell you something interesting. All of the texts that you're referencing, none of them actually were written at the time that Jesus existed. And many of them, we have earlier versions of them that are different than the versions we read now. And there were entire books that were left out of the canon, the Bible that you read.
That's correct.
Aren't you at this point where you don't trust the institution that gave you that book?
Of course.
Okay, good.
Of course.
So then why are you citing the book that they gave you as proof?
You asked me the source, and that's the physical source.
Here's the question.
That's the physical source. Now, if you'd like to know my spiritual source, that's different.
No, I'm not asking for your spiritual source.
Right. So I gave you but I gave you the physical source.
I'm saying that source is not a good historical source. That's what I'm saying to you. It wasn't written during the time that Jesus lived.
Mhm.
It certainly wasn't written by someone named John.
Of course not. These names were interpreted later
So
on
then
under
why are
King
you
James.
using them as a historical source?
You asked me for because it's still written in a part of history. This was still one
comics
study.
do you think there are of Peter Parker Spider-Man? More
There
than
are
25,000?
There are multiple interpretations of Peter Parker.
Peter
You're
Parker
absolutely correct.
Spider-Man is a historical character then.
Yeah, he is a part of history because he does exist.
No,
does
no,
he
no,
not?
no, no, no.
Does he
no,
not
no,
exist?
We're talking
Do the
about
comics
a
not exist?
literal historical
If you
figure.
can say a physical date for the creation of Peter Parker, he exists.
So then you believe
So
that
if we
Zeus
have
existed.
hold on.
So you
Yes,
believe that
in the
Zeus
sense that
existed?
he did. This
You
is a
believe that
form of a
Zeus
demigod.
existed?
This is a form of a demigod as well.
Who's a
I
form
know
of a
they
demigod?
call
Jesus
him
is a
god.
demigod?
No, I said Zeus. You
Zeus
asked
is a
me about
demigod.
you're asking me about Zeus.
Uh-oh. It seems like he has to go back
What's
and
up,
learn
Titus
Greek
debate
No,
league?
I understand that Hercules is deemed a demigod, but I'm saying a demigod in the sense of the
So
fallen
you believe that
angels.
Zeus existed?
Hold on. The fallen angels that came down to earth that had sex with humans, and they were
Fallen
of course.
angels. You're mixing a lot of stuff together.
No, this is talked
He
about inside
is.
the Bible as well, and this
Fallen-
is where we have these
Yeah,
mixed
but you're
demigods
not
everything.
looking
from.
at the Bible
That's
for
what
information
Zeus
around
is.
Zeus. So you believe that
But
Zeus
I'm
is
saying that
so
the
you
existence
believe,
of Zeus exists. You see
you
these two
believe
different
that Zeus
history
is
pieces.
a literal historical figure. That's
yes,
what you're saying.
Sure, go ahead. Yes,
You do?
yes. I
Boy,
don't think he can shoot
I'm
lightning.
telling you, it's not
I don't think
Sunday,
he
but
can
they're
shoot
not going to let
lightning.
you back in church on Sunday.
Go.
You're there, not going to let
These
you in.
different religions
They gonna
all
say, "Oh, no, we
correspond and they
closed, Brother
overlap at once. No, no. I would like to know his sources.
If you just switch it right now, you know everything he's saying. You just on that side, so you're trying to go against it when you should
Religious bias.
I feel you.
Because you're not a fucking Christian.
I follow Christ. I'm not a Christian in the sense
He's
of going to
saying
the
Jesus
church.
didn't
I follow
exist. That's
Christ.
exactly what he's saying.
Christianity
He
is
is saying
following
Jesus didn't
Christ.
exist.
No, I'm not a Gnostic. I believe in following
He
Jesus
said a bunch
Christ
of
and the
things that were
consciousness
Gnostic.
of Christ.
Everything you have said has been knocking.
He said a bunch of things that
I follow
you said a
Christ.
bunch of things
I
that wouldn't be
follow
accepted in the
Christ.
modern church.
I understand that, and that's why I have issues with the pastors in the modern church. I have issues with
Issues with them lying about a historical figure that is a mythological figure.
No.
Okay, so that's probably. The
I have
problem you should
issues with
have
making
them.
profit on the name of God and the name of Jesus.
Okay.
I have issues with making a mockery of it, and I have issues that they're going ahead and they're perpetrating and pushing through different verses like in Leviticus that tell you about being a good slave. I don't go hand in hand with those. I know that that's from the manipulation of the book that's been indoctrinated across the land. I have an issue with
That's a
that.
good start. That's a
But
good start.
I'm saying I am a follower of Christ.
Okay, but you can be a follower of Christ. We're
Right.
talking about.
Right,
we're
so that
talking
is a
about whether-
Christian.
We're talking about whether Christ was a literal, historical, living
Yes.
person.
So
That's
they-
what we're talking about.
So let me.
I'm
go
not
ahead.
contest. I'm not saying you can't be a follower
Right,
of Christ.
okay.
I would
So-
never say that. To
So
you.
thank you. So
I'm
now
just
that
saying
we're back on the bias.
Jesus didn't die because he never lived. Are you forgetting the prompt?
I know. I'm not forgetting the prompt. I'm back to you.
Okay.
So they recorded for 33 AD that
Yep.
there was a sun moon.
Who
there was a
recorded that?
blood moon. They recently just released this information
Okay.
that there was a confirmed blood moon that
He's
was
a
talked
Kemetic
about
priest.
on the night of the crucifixion.
But I was
of
saying
Jesus
that
Christ.
if you
Okay.
guys
That
want
was a
to,
part of a satanic ritual. Jesus Christ was
I'm sorry, just in case I was like off the thing, I did put the link in the chat. If you want to come up here and talk about this subject or contest it, please hit the link. Shouts out. Let's go.
killed for a satanic ritual.
Where you get that from? Whoa, you going? He's going
This
even
is for-
farther afield than I am.
I'm
They are
not.
not going to let you
I'm
get into
telling
church
you.
on Sunday.
That's fine.
Come to the
Because-
shrine. We'll let you in. We'll let you in.
Look, man, I like you, and I don't
I
have
like
no
you
issue with it.
We're
But
gonna-
I do understand
right.
where you stand on this.
Mhm.
But I'm telling you that you can fact check that as well for 33 AD.
So you're
reported-
suggesting that if
blood
there
moon.
was a blood moon,
Yes, that was discussed.
that
about.
means that Jesus literally was crucified at that time.
Yes.
Do you know that when you
They
read
documented-
wait, listen.
Yes, go
When
ahead.
you read comic books about Peter Parker, Spider-Man, they often use historical events. I have a cover of Peter Parker meeting Barack Obama. I think we both agree that Barack Obama is a literal figure, right?
Correct.
So does that mean that Spider-Man is a literal figure, someone that actually lived?
Do you agree that Pilate was a literal figure?
I think that we have proof now that Pilate was a literal figure.
Okay, but he interacted with Jesus Christ, and he was the one behind the execution.
So then you
of
believe
him.
that Peter
So would
Parker.
you-
Wait,
Go ahead. I like where you're going.
wait.
Go
So
ahead.
then you're saying you believe that Peter Parker, Spider-Man, is literally someone who lived.
Did Peter Parker in real life not meet Barack Obama?
In real, what do you mean?
Tom
by real
Holland.
life?
Tom Holland, the actor, did. So he still met Barack
I
Obama.
don't know if Tom Holland met Barack Obama.
He did.
Did he play Jesus too?
He didn't play
if he played
Jesus.
we would,
but in the sense of your
we would
question,
turn off the podcast and watch
Spider-Man,
a film.
but Spider-Man did meet Barack Obama in that sense.
So that means that you believe that Peter
can
Parker.
that not mean that art and history cannot exist in one?
What I'm saying,
these comics can
But
also
that
be
doesn't mean
the
that
same
Jesus
depiction
exists.
of something that is
I
real.
think
I
that you're
agree.
losing the point that we're
I'm
making.
not.
Let's wrap
Jesus
this up.
Christ did exist. Go ahead.
The point that we are making is that Jesus Christ was not a literal physical person. That's the point we're making. Is there a mythological story about him? Of course there is. Of course there is. And I even think there's wisdom to be learned by his story. But when we try to make that story literal, historical, we have problems.
So what proof do you have that disproves that Jesus exists?
I just told you. Just
because you haven't found anything.
The first thing
so if you don't find anything, that means
wait. It's not just not finding things. It's also looking at the fact that much of his story was told in an earlier tradition. And then the people that told you that there was a literal Jesus sought to wipe out that tradition.
I understand. So
right off the bat, you should say something is fishy here.
I understand what you're saying, but the absence of evidence is not the evidence of absence. Something can still be there.
Okay. Let's move on. Please hit like and subscribe. It helps us grow the show and helps us get bigger guests. Thank you so much.
Man, listen, before we go into that, I want to bring on Mel because he actually just left he just left Egypt. And he's going to talk about the whole aspect of Egypt and everything that he found when he went to Egypt. Let's get into that.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to Watching the World. It's so nice to be here with you today to discuss a matter that is quite amazing when you stop and think about it. Throughout my life, I always wanted to go to Egypt. Although I'd traveled to many places, I think Egypt would take the cake. And quite frankly, that's what happened when I had the chance to go there. I'm going to allow for people to come in because I didn't play the song today. So we're going to give it a few moments. We're going to talk about Egypt in a way probably I didn't even expect to, because when I went on this grand tour, I did not realize I would learn some of the things that I did. So again, I want to give it a few moments. And Sunday is the day for church and holiness. So what a great day for us to come together and talk about these matters. But we're going to look at it from a different aspect, more of an educational way instead of a spiritual way. And I ask that you guys maintain an open mind, because a lot of this information is not what most people desire to hear. Because most of us, when our light is turned on, that means some of us were born in the United States. Some of us were born, obviously, in Egypt and throughout the world. And you have no control over your life or what family you would join. You were born, and based on the family that you were united with when you came out of your mother's womb, whatever religion they had, your mother had probably, or grew to love, it became your religion, right? I'm pretty sure you guys can associate with that. So today, we're not talking about news. Again, this will probably be the last time that I touch on this subject matter when it comes to religion or Egypt or traveling until I establish the new channel. And then we're going to talk about that on a consistent basis. I know that a lot of people do not wish to hear. A lot of people are not even familiar when it comes to the Bible and all of these types of subject matters. So today, this is the way we're going to make a connection, as tomorrow I will be officially introducing the new channel. All right, so I've given it a few moments. For those who are coming in beyond this point, you could always go back and check out the little introduction, which doesn't amount to much anyway, especially in comparison to all of the things that we're going to talk about today. Today, I'm going to lay out the format of my trip. If you don't know why I chose to say that the trip to Egypt was devastating, I'm going to break that down to you first. The reason why I say the trip was devastating is because throughout the entirety of my life thus far, I learned about the Bible and Christianity. So when I went to Egypt, I saw things that are written in stone, if you will, on the walls of the pyramids and also the tombs. Things that I thought originated in the Bible actually came out of Egypt. And let me tell you why it's so devastating. Okay, check this out. In the religion, at least through Christianity, through the lens, right, that I grew up with, I was always taught that Egypt and Africa is bad. It's voodoo. It's witchcraft, right? It's a terrible thing. It's paganism, right? But before I went to Egypt, I went on a trip to
Yep.
Italy. And you know what they taught us out in Rome when I was at the Colosseum and all of these grand places? That was a beautiful trip too. And I'm going to Greece next. But they say the winners get to write the history. The winners write the history. And that's what I learned when I went to Egypt. And what devastated me, right? This is what devastated me. When the old folk used to tell me that Egypt is paganism, it's bad, it's dark, it's black. I said, why? What makes it that way? But because of the way I grew up, I did not have anyone to articulate. No fault to my family, right? This is what life is all about, right? You go out and you learn, you see some parts of the world. I'm blessed now to be able to travel whenever I feel like it, right? I'm not waiting on a paycheck from YouTube or Cash App. No, I'm taking you guys on a walk with me that has already been started. So in Italy, they told us the winners write the history, right? That's why Black folks in America right now, and even white folks to a certain extent, don't really know their history. You're labeled black and white, and you have to go out and figure the rest. Someone erased your history, they won. And so they tell you, you came from Africa, or you came from this, you came from darkness, you came from hate. You don't know the difference, right? Neither do your family members that came before you to a certain extent, right? So check this out. I go to the temple, and it's quite amazing, but this is what I found out. And this is what really shook me to the core. When the Christians came in, right? When they made, by way of Italy, right? When they made Christianity the state religion, did you hear what the guy told us on the tour? That they would go in and cut off your members and set you on fire if you did not convert to Christianity. And here was the key part, right? Here's the key part. From that day on, all of the temples and everything that had to do with Egypt became paganism. It became evil. It became dark. And so that's why you have people that are already here lost in America. We see that, right? I don't need to explain that to everybody. Some people refuse to understand basic concepts. I'm not here to talk to you. But a lot of the individuals who are lost in the United States because of their heritage and the slavery, just not being able to know. Now, when you try to look back at the past of where you think you came from, especially if you're a Christian, just like I've been my entire life, right? I was taught that. Now you're taught that, listen, all of that spirituality that's there in Africa is from the devil. It's paganism, right? It's unholy. So you see, the winners went in. Now, here's the part that's very interesting. And this is the part for those that are really trying to figure this out. This is the part you really have to pay attention to. It's one thing if the Italy, let me go back, right? When you have the Jews or the Hebrews, right? We'll just label it that for simplicity. Then you have Genesis to Malachi, okay? The first 5 books is the Torah. You have Moses. Quite frankly, no talk of Moses when I was out in Egypt. I was floored by that. Why no talk of Moses? Why are we not learning that the Israelites were slaves in Egypt? How come we're not seeing this on the walls? This is what we learned in the Bible. How come this is not the staple of this trip? Right? In fact, they told us that they didn't even allow slaves to really build these monuments and these massive beings and buildings because they were not holy enough. So already I started to say, wait a minute, this is different than what I read in the Bible, okay? So anyway, from Genesis to Malachi, you have the Hebrew scriptures.
Why would slaves build such a monolith? For whatever reason. Let's go.
Okay, but then you have the Greek scriptures because they were written in Greek predominantly, right? From Matthew into Revelation. So now all of this is coming out of a region that's controlled by the Greeks and the Romans. Okay, so we're going to get into all of that. I'm going to try not to mix in what I learned when I went to the Vatican and when I went to Rome. Okay, I'm going to try not to mix that in too much because we're focused on Egypt, but you really can't look at one without the other because we start to realize that once the Romans and the Greeks, once they came in with their influence and they brought in Christianity and they made it the state religion, now what did they do? They went into the temples and they started to put the emblems from the Christian faith all over these ancient Egyptian temples to say, now we have a new religion. This is the religion, right? See, when you read the Bible, and do not get this twisted, I'm trying to speak about this from a neutral perspective, even though my past is heavily influenced by Christianity, okay? But what I'm trying to help you to understand is what I learned while I was on this trip and why I say it's devastating, because it opened my eyes, because I thought all of these concepts came from the Bible. But now I'm finding out that a lot of this was written in stone on alabaster within the walls of the pyramids thousands of years before the Bible was written, especially when it comes to the Greek scriptures going back roughly 2,000 years ago. Okay? So what does this mean and why? You see, it's one thing if the Greeks and the Romans came in with Christianity. Now we're going to get into Christianity, and I'm going to break that down from the Roman perspective as to what I learned, because quite frankly, the Apostle Paul is the individual that kicked off this Christianity. Most people don't know enough to even realize that. A lot of people question whether Jesus actually lived or not, but they don't really question Paul. Paul, because of the writings, he substantiates that Jesus pretty much existed. But even with the Apostle Paul, he talks about on the road to Damascus, he saw this light. You know the whole story, right? So it wasn't a physical encounter with Jesus. He had a spiritual revelation, which made him, as we could say, the 13th apostle. So you had the 12 apostles who they say walked with Jesus, and they saw what he did and heard all of these experiences. Well, later we learned that's not the case. Even the Bible tells you it's written according to these men, but it's written in a way that would have you believe that they were actually eyewitnesses. Well, that's not the case. We're going to get into that too. But the Apostle Paul had this revelation. And through his revelation, he had some conflicts. When you get into the writings of Paul, you'll see, and also when you go through Acts, you'll see that he's having a battle with some of the men, the 12, that Jesus would have walked with. Okay? So Paul is coming in saying, listen, I know you guys are the 12 apostles, but I had a revelation from the heavens, and the way that I'm expressing this to you is correct. It's far more compelling than what Jesus would have left you with when he was on earth. Okay? So I'm just laying out the format as far as you have the Hebrew scriptures, but the Greek scriptures are more influenced from the time frame of the Romans. Now, here's the weird part. From when I went to Rome and I walked through Vatican, I went through all of these places. It's all live on my channel. If you go back in time, you could actually hear all the tours of when I went to these places, especially in the Vatican. You could actually see they had a painting where Muhammad is in hell and some of these other prominent figures from other religions. And that's why they have so much security there at the Vatican. Okay. Now, I say all of that because I'm just trying to set the stage. I want you to think about this. When you go through the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, okay, if you look in the typical Bible, it'll say written according to these individuals because it's written anonymously. They don't know who the writers were. The letter J wasn't even made. So to say Jesus or John just would not have been in that time frame because that came about within the 14th century. I know I'm dropping a whole lot of information that a lot of people may not be familiar with, but for the most part, I'm just trying to lay this out so that for those who, the right people are going to come through, they're going to appreciate what I'm laying out, okay? But at any rate, think about this. The Jews were the ones who brought Jesus to the Romans to put him to death, right? Remember the account in the Bible, when you read it, it talks about Pontius Pilate. Pontius Pilate is saying, listen, what's the deal with this guy, right? The Jews say, listen, his blood will be upon us and our children. So this is the Jews wanting Jesus to be put to death. Remember the account where it talks about Barabbas, right? That's where the scapegoat comes from. They chose, let Barabbas go, but put Jesus to death. So who puts Jesus to death? Well, you have the Romans. The Romans put Jesus to death, right? But guess what? Guess who's controlling religion today? Isn't it the Roman Catholic Church? If you follow the money, it should tell you everything you need to know in regards to how is the same people that put Jesus to death writing the rules and regulations of Christianity, so to speak, right? Have you ever thought about that? These are some very serious questions, and actually traveling to these places, I began to realize, wait a minute, this is just not what I've been learning, right? Now, while we're talking about the Romans, I showed you on the temple, on the pyramid walls, and also in the tombs, you have the cross, the same cross that many individuals of Christian faith, right? They wear the cross because why? Because the cross symbolizes, Jesus dying on the cross, right? Remember the account? Actually, I showed you guys inside the temple. The temple in Jerusalem is what we're focused on, but I showed you in Egypt, they already had these same temples pretty much. The ideas of these temples didn't originate with the Jews. They learned it from the Egyptians. In fact, right, when you read the Torah and you learn about circumcision with a man, right, and the babies, you cut off the tip. right? And then later you hear about circumcision of the heart, right? I was always taught that circumcision came from the Jews, right? Well, I showed you guys, you get a chance to hear from the magnificent tour guide that we had, that circumcision, the Jews learned that from the Egyptians. Okay? They learned it from the Egyptians, right? But that cross, what did you guys think when you see the holy cross that you wear around your neck? You actually see that it came out of Egypt. And also you see the Ankh. And if you see the double Ankh, right, that has meaning, reincarnation, right? But more importantly, everlasting life. That's a concept that's taught in the Bible. And then I went to the pyramids and I saw, wait a minute, these concepts are coming from the pyramids, the ancient Egyptians, right? There's something to think about. A lot of people are not going to be welcoming to this type of information, but these are the things that we learned while we were, this is why I say it was devastating, because I thought a lot of these concepts had stemmed strictly from the Bible. What about the tree of life? Do you know what it meant to me to walk through the pyramids? And there the tour guide says, this is the tree of life. I say, wait a minute, the tree of life? That's in the Bible. You mean to tell me that came from ancient Egypt, the tree of life? What about when I showed you guys Judgment Day? Judgment Day. That came from the Bible, right? That's what I believe. What was it like to actually, when I show you guys, right? And now a lot of you probably realize you know these concepts, but to actually see it on the walls. In Egypt, you see the Judgment Day and how it plays out, right? And how your heart is weighed against a feather and your good deeds and bad deeds. All of these concepts. What about, you know, when you read the Bible, and I'm talking about the Bible because that's just been my experience. A guy that has the Quran comes after the concept of Jesus because the Quran actually quotes, right, the New Testament. So we know the timeline. So I'm not going to focus on that. But when it comes to the Bible, I speak on what I know because this is how I grew up, right? Okay, but what do you think when you read the Bible and it talks about everlasting life? You think that this is just a concept. See, the reason why I'm laying it out to you this way, it's one thing, right? It's one thing as if you had learned this concept that the Greeks and the Romans, when they came and they were really, the whole development of Christianity occurred during the first century. It's one thing if they said God spoke to us through the pyramids, and now we're taking the pyramids and we're building on it. God, it's like the scripture in the Psalms where it says the light gets brighter and brighter. So it's one thing if you take those pyramids and you have the same concepts, so you embrace it and you say, oh, the marvelous God we serve. Look how he's just given us the information through the pyramids. Then he revealed it to us in a marvelous way. And now we're taking it to another level. No, that's not what they did. They took the ideas from the pyramids and it's kind of like what happened to Black people in America. They take all the concepts from the pyramids, right? You saw the god, what's his name? Khnum. He built the first man, the first two humans from clay. Oh, that's very familiar from the Bible in Genesis, right? They took these concepts and then they say, okay, that's it. Don't listen to them anymore. Listen to us. We're going to rephrase it, right? Okay, I'm going to show you in so many different ways. And this is not something beautiful for me. I'm just so shocked because I invested so much of my life. See, they didn't take the pyramids and these concepts. When you see the same tree of life concept and you see it rewritten, okay, and all the circumcision, and they show you where it actually stems out of Egypt, but Egypt doesn't get any credit. Why is that the case? And then after you, I don't want to say plagiarize, but after you take that information, now you close the door and say, that's from the devil. Listen to us. We're going to spin it a different way of holiness and righteousness. Okay. I know it's not pleasant for a lot of people to hear this. It is what it is. I won't be discussing this at a high level on this channel. Okay. But there's just so much to this when I actually went through, and that's not the only way. For so many years, I've experienced the Eucharist. Many religions call it the memorial of Jesus Christ, right? Let me tell you something that was quite reminiscent, and it really floored me, okay? Really floored me. Now, I'm very versed when it comes to the Gospels, and I could probably tell you just about where everything is. That's how tight I am when it comes to the Gospels, right? And also the writings of the Apostle Paul. So what I'm actually going to articulate to you is the Last Supper. When anybody that has gone to a memorial celebration, your church might call it something different, but you know it's in the scriptures where Jesus says, take the bread, this represents my flesh. And take the wine, it represents my blood. Okay? And so you're actually drinking the wine and symbolization that you're drinking the blood of Christ. So imagine when I went into the temple and they actually took us to the temple of the individual, right? The queen, and she had this supreme fetish when it comes to the drink of blood. Think about that, right? So we go into the temple and then they start telling you, I actually went into the chamber where they did the sacrifices for blood. This is the obsession with blood, right? So then they showed us how in order to, because so many people were losing their life because of this bloodthirst. Okay, a lot of this is myths. Okay, but anyway, the temple was real. I went into the temple, but then they says, listen. So they gave this, they gave her wine, and she drank it and became intoxicated, and that caused her to not be so deeply in this lust for blood. Okay, and already, if anyone who knows about the memorial, you start to realize where some of these ideas really come from. Now it's very debatable, but what I'm telling you is when you actually go to the temple and you go to the pyramids and you go into we actually went into the tombs of Seti, King Tut, and so many different individuals, right? It's so amazing. We went into Ramesses' tomb too, okay? And you start to, when you go into, and I have it all on video, I have to release it all, but I'm going to put it on the new channel because I don't want to bog this channel down, number one, with this type of discussion or with all of the videos that I have to put out. I have enough to have you watching it probably over the next year. Just so much from Italy and from Egypt, and we're about to go to Greece. But here's the thing about it. When you start to look at what we learned in Italy, and also you put it with Egypt, it really brings all of these different concepts to life and help you to understand that Egypt is like as they said when we were there, it's the beginning of civilization. Now, they told us, and it's very true, Australia had 40,000 years before Egypt, but they weren't so organized. You just had people floating through. And you probably had a lot of that happening prior to Egypt, right? But the Egyptians, and I won't even get into who were the real Egyptians. That's a real big debate that's happening. That was a catalyst behind me actually going out to Egypt because a lot of guys are saying, oh, it was Black people. And then others say, no, it was this. So anyway, that question still remains open because that's the subject matter that I come to understand that they don't want to talk about. And there's a good reason for that. But one of the names of Egypt is called Black Land. Well, a lot of people would say, a good debater would say, well, it's talking about the dirt. Okay, so I hear all of these debates. I won't get into that. But basically what I'm saying to you today is what's so devastating was for me to realize that a lot of these particular concepts, for instance, when we went to the Temple of Horus, okay, the Temple of Horus. Now, a lot of people tried to make the argument that Horus was the same individual as Jesus. It's just that Horus was the god that was worshipped from the Egyptian standpoint. And then the Greeks came through along with the Romans, and whichever way they got there, you have the story about Jesus, okay? Now, here's one of the things that is probably mind-boggling, and I'm not here to really try to push this on anyone. I'm just laying out some of the ideas, that the concepts that I've stumbled across. When we went to the Temple of Horus, and you guys can go back and look, you'll be able to see that was made by 90% by the Greeks and 10% by the Romans. It's almost like a direct replica of what the Egyptians had made in regards to their temple. Now, here's the mind-boggling part about this that really devastated me. I didn't realize that the temples of Egypt, one of their main purposes was to collect taxes. And so when the Egyptians created their temples, right, pretty much similar to the temple in Jerusalem, that's another, you have the most holy, right? That should open your mind a little bit. Why is the temple in Jerusalem synonymous pretty much with the ancient Egyptian temples? Okay, but I won't get into that. I'll leave that there for you. But one of their main purposes was to collect taxes. So when they created the Temple of Horus, now you see they have more enclosures so that when the people came to pay their taxes, they would have to use their imagination about the God beyond the walls. Okay, so keep that in mind.
Wizard of Oz.
Now you have the Greeks and you have the Romans. They're duplicating the ancient Egyptian temple, but they're adding their own, we'll say, tweaks to it. So in other words, when we went to the ancient Egyptian temple, their columns would be identical all the way through. The Greeks and the Romans, well, they wanted each column to be made differently. That's to show their dominance, right? They're the new sheriff in town. Also, when they made the duplicate, they made sure that they put their symbols of Christianity on the walls. Very similar to what you see the cardinal wearing when I actually went to Rome and I saw a lot of the symbols there. Okay. So when you think about the most holy, a lot of people know about Jesus. So I'm going to give you an example of a time when Jesus died. Remember, it said that the Roman centurion, it says that the curtain in the temple rent in two. And he says, well, this must be the Son of God. Okay. So actually, when I did the filming, I actually expressed it to you where you could probably envision this is what the most holy will look like. And you probably had a lot of gold, and this was a representation of God. But do you know what happened? This collecting of taxes starts to turn into something like collecting of tithes. Whoa, what's happening here? Tithing is stemming from taxing? Whoa, wait. I start getting confused in the temple. So things are starting to add up in my mind. Like, okay, so wait a minute. The Egyptians, they were collecting taxes, but now in time, by means of the Hebrews, the Jews, and so forth, now you have tithing. And now today, tithing has become something of a bit of a out of control type of deal, because it's very hard to go to any church and not hear the pastor saying, oh, could you just give? And then 10 minutes later, could you just give? You know, and then maybe 5 minutes before you leave, could you just now you gave your tithe, we need you to sow. So now you follow what I'm saying here? So a lot of these different concepts that now listen, you guys heard the tour. This is not something I'm trying to push, but because of my past, I knew very heavily the construct of the scriptures. I'm very versed when it comes to that. But then I see all of these concepts just kept hitting me in the head. Boop. Wait a minute. This God made the first two humans on a clay wheel. Man, that's like reading Genesis. My goodness. Okay. In the Gospels, when I read the Gospels, Jesus talking about, remember, in the book of Mark, also Matthew, he instructs the 12 apostles how they should go out and complete the ministry. I could tell you the exact scriptures if you really want to. I can go there. Okay. But it was about love and converting people, right? And also tell them about God and tell them about, and then there's just so much that you would actually do for mankind. But remember, in the book of Mark, Jesus even talks about the young children, and he says, listen, if you do anything toward the young children, you're going to be in hot water. And one of the scriptures, I believe in Matthew, it talks about what's going to really happen to you if you hurt a child. Okay. So to actually go there and see that when Christianity first started, that you would be put to death if you did not convert. I said, whoa, wait a minute, brother. This is a little bit different than what I've been reading my whole life. Like, I was having this moment of clarity standing in the temple. And I know a lot of people are having trouble with this. I will not talk about this anymore on this channel. But this is things that you can go back on my channel and you can hear from the tour guides, right? You can hear from the tour guides. Some of these things will really challenge your thinking and what you've been told. But that's not it, right? There are just so many different stories and gems that I was able to gather that came right off of the walls. I'm going to put out the video today of being inside of the pyramids. And actually, you'll get a chance to see the cross on the wall. You'll see how the walls are made of alabaster. When you put a flashlight on the wall, it lights up just like a Christmas tree. Magnificent videos I'm going to start putting out. Like I said, I'm going to put that one on this channel because it's just so powerful. But the rest of them, I'm going to put on the new channel. You'll just be able to go. There's no paywall. You can go over there and watch it until you can. But I'm going to move all of that over. I say all of this to say this, right? When you start to travel, see, a lot of us, right? Depending on where you're born, like right now, I live in New York. I came out of Virginia. Okay. All right. Had I been born in Egypt, I probably would have been a Muslim. That's just the nature of how it works. Right. Okay. If I was born in India, maybe I would be Hinduism, right? And the list goes on and on. A lot of it, when it comes to religion, you're a product of what the decisions of your parents were, and maybe the family religion, or you would be a Catholic. Okay. All right. I've studied the Catholicism at a high level. I saw the Vatican. I went to all of these places. I saw where the Apostle Paul and Peter allegedly are buried. Okay. I won't get into that. I saw people coming in and praying to the saints. I get all of that. But then I go to Egypt and I start to hear a lot of these things that I actually read from the Bible. And I was shaken by it. I'm going to break it down to you. And it's hard for me to do this without offending people. But this is going to be the final video. If you feel like this is too much for you, I respect it, right? Someone had spoken to me and opened my mind up. I started researching. And then I came to these conclusions. But when I went to the actual temple, and I actually went to the Colosseum in Rome, and I went to Pompeii, and I went to some of the places that Paul is traveling. And I'm like, how did Paul travel? Man, and you even like when we were in Egypt and we were going to Alexandria, we were not that far from Israel and Jerusalem. And I'm like, man, it takes us this long. And the guy's driving at a high speed, a reasonable speed. But imagine doing this on a camel and the whole timeline. See, a lot of it turns out to be literature. And I know people are not ready for that. So I'm going to stay off of it. But let me give you guys an example of, listen, I just got to put it out. If you got to unsubscribe, then it is what it is. I got to be honest with you. I'm going to break this down and I'm going to let this go. Okay. So a lot of people, when they debate, because I engage in quite a few debates, a lot of guys say, well, because there are some professors out there that are really good, like Bart Ehrman, people that I actually know, and they actually break it down at a high level. But there's always this argument about how did the Greeks and the Romans, if you're going to say that they constructed this concept about Jesus, how would they have known about Horus and all of these other concepts, right? And that's very debatable, and I'm not here to get into that. But I'm going to break this down for you in a way that I hope it opens up a door for you to see how men are very manipulative. In fact, the Greeks had become masters. If you research this, they were using the whole Bible program. Keep in mind that when the United States is built on the whole concept of here's your Bible, and then they come with the sword and you're a slave, okay? So that concept was not learned in the United States. In fact, it was taught to the Romans by the Greeks. Now, I study this stuff, and I know it's tough to you. But because this is the last video here, I want to get this out the chamber, and then you guys, I'm going to go through some of the questions. But let me break this down for you. You have the concept about Horus, right? Now, I'm going to really try to lay this out, but I know some people just refuse to try to understand. The Hebrews or the Jews, do you ever wonder why they don't accept Jesus? Okay, because in the Hebrew scriptures, right, even though the Catholic Church, to a certain extent, right, put together the compilation of the Bible, okay, and because it's Hebrew and then you have the Greek scriptures, everybody just think it automatically goes together. And then you have the writings of, you have the book of Acts, and then you have the writings of Paul, and then you have Peter and Revelation. You know how it goes, okay? A lot of people get stuck because they actually think, they don't realize that the Gospels are the earliest. Most Bible scholars will tell you that the book of Mark, which may have been written in Alexandria, where I was just there a couple of days ago, was written around 72 AD, okay? So that's not around the time frame of Jesus' life. In fact, I would challenge any and every one of you to go research. You did not have any historian during the lifetime of Jesus saying, hey, there's a man over there, he's raising the dead. Don't you think people would be writing about that? Wouldn't that be the topic of the day, right? You don't have any, not one. Now, a lot of people use, right? We're just talking about the life of Jesus, right? A lot of people use Josephus, the historian, to substantiate that Christ, Jesus, was there. Well, if you go by the Bible's timeline, Jesus, according to his ministry, probably died around 33, okay? All right? Josephus was born in 37. He lived all the way up to around 99 AD. He only writes about Jesus right before he dies 1 year prior. So you mean to tell me Josephus did not write about Jesus during the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s? Nothing? Okay. So I'm just giving you the contemporary situation. You don't have any historians writing, because the argument is that these writings came after the fact, okay? Now, for those of you that I've seen debate this whole thing, well, how did the Greeks know? Well, the Greeks, I just showed you when it comes to the Temple of Horus, they actually, they built 90% of the temple. The Romans did 10%. So they know these concepts very, quite frankly, to be able to pull them from Egypt very easily. And I'm not saying that all of these concepts just came from Egypt, right? But you can tell that they were prolific writers. The reason why I'm going to Greece is because I've been to the Metropolitan Museum in New York City, right? And let me give it to you like this. When you go to the Metropolitan Museum, and I went with two Bible scholars, I went with Jabari and I went with Reggie. These guys are amazing. When the earlier years, the Egyptian years, they would have a simple bowl. And on the side of the bowl, you would have the writings, the hieroglyphs, you'd have the writings. And so when the Greeks came in to invade, they didn't understand that this is actual language. So what happens over the next 1,000 or so years, you start to see where the Greeks starts using these carvings in their bowls, but they don't know that it's communication because they're getting these ideas from Egypt. Okay. It's all you have to do is come to New York and go to the Metropolitan Museum. It'll change your thinking for quite some time. But anyway, then over time, you see where the Greeks, they start creating this whole pantheon of gods. Now, one of the temples that I went to, and I'm going to break this down on the new channel when I get a moment, you'll see the first ruler that got rid of the polygods, I'll call it, and they went with monolith. Okay, they just focus on one God. Okay, so anyone that was following the channel, you probably know that this is something that was explained very well, but I'm going to explain it very good on the next channel, and it'll be more precise, right? So that's where you get the idea about this one God. It's right there on the Egyptian walls. Okay, so it's very important to understand the level of the information that's coming out of Egypt. Now, I want to get back to this basic concept, but I wanted to paint the picture that the Greeks and the Romans were taking so much information from the Egyptians. Now we're going to talk about Jesus, okay? And now I just showed you, you don't have any contemporary individuals saying, my heavens, there's a man, he just turned water into wine. You don't have that, not one. He's raising the dead. You just don't have it, okay? Now check this out. I'm going to break this down. It's going to be very complex, but I hope you guys can do your own independent research, and I think it's going to help you understand what I'm saying. Because I study this every day, right? When I'm not on the microphone trying to figure out the next show, I'm doing my studying for a whole different purpose, okay? But let me break this down for you. When I went to Egypt, we have King Tut that lived some, 3,000 years before the Christ, right? Right? You can go there. I have the video. I'll put that out on the channel today. So I'll put out those 2 videos for you. I don't know if YouTube is going to go with it because it's actually his body is there. He's about 5'7". You know, he was 19 years old when King Tut died. So I'm going to show you that from inside of the tomb. I'm going to bring that to you. Okay. 3,000 years before the Christ, you have King Tut. Okay. Now I'm going to challenge you to find any Bible character, find their actual grave. Okay. That's a separate thing I want you to do. And I'm begging you to do the research. I want you to go find where the Apostle Paul is buried and all of these individuals. Okay. It's very important that you do this. But now I'm going to break this down. Okay. So we're going to use Martin Luther King. All right. Let's use John F. Kennedy. You can go back in history and you can find out when John F. Kennedy was born. You could probably find his birth certificate. Okay. All right. Now, the day he died, you could go back and you could probably find pictures from his funeral. Okay. But you can substantiate him. It's not just because of what one person told you. You could probably go find John F. K. writings. You could probably catch him on video. You could find out who his doctor was. His parents probably wrote about him. You would probably find his writings. Okay. So this is very important that you understand where I'm going with this. Now, and I'm trying to show you that a lot of what we get is literature. Okay. And I don't have enough time today to get into the Dead Sea Scrolls because then you get more of a militant type of Christians. They were called the way people. I could really break it down, but just not today. There was no miracles, but they had a righteous teacher. So anybody versed in the Dead Sea Scrolls could know what inspired all of the literature that's being written in the Gospels. But let me break this down for you. We're going to go with King Herod. Anybody that's somewhat slightly familiar with the Bible, you know that King Herod put out a decree they call him Herod the Great, right? He put out a decree to kill this is what the narrative is, to kill all of the children. A lot of people just say boys, but the scriptures say children under 2. Why? Because the Magi came and said, hey, where is this promised baby, the Messiah? And then Herod's like, oh, he starts to realize the threat to him. He says, oh, tell me where this boy is when you find him. And then what? An angel intervened and told them, listen, don't go back and tell Herod anything. But anyway, let's stay focused on Herod. Herod put out to kill all the children under 2. Now, we have no historical writings about that in Bethlehem, okay? All right, just like when you go to Egypt, you don't have any historical writing about the Jews being slaves, or you don't have any artifacts that 1 million people were walking through the desert. We're talking about the Israelites. That's a whole different subject. Okay, but anyway, we're going to focus on this whole situation with Jesus. Now, in the book of Matthew, it gives you the birth narrative, starting with the book of Mark. I don't want to get into it too deeply, but I have to because this is the last video on this channel. So I want to make sure when I get the sharp guys coming through that I'm going to give them something to come after me for. So the book of Mark is written first. Okay, that's the general consensus when you come to the Bible scholars. Then you have Matthew, then you have Luke, then you have John. in the book of Mark, it starts off with Jesus' baptism. He's a grown man. Okay. That's the first book written. And the book stops abruptly with the women at the temple. I mean, at his memorial tomb. Okay. So most of the Bible scholars will help you to understand that a lot of the ending of Mark was made up. Okay. A lot of people don't realize that. So when you get the part about you can be bit by poisonous, you'll be able to trample on poisonous snakes and it won't affect you. That was not in the original book of Mark. There's a way to get to that. I can't cover it obviously in this. Okay. Now the book of Matthew gives you the birth narrative of Jesus, starting from it tells you about John and how John came into being, because John has to pave the way for Jesus. Now, the reason why the writers had to come up with this story is because in Malachi, whoever's writing the Greek scriptures is trying to fulfill prophecies from the Hebrew scriptures. Now, this is a side point. When I went to Rome, you have the Jews living in ghettos to this day. So that's where the ghettos come from. And as we were on the tour, you could see the ghettos where the Jews live. I mean, hopefully they don't flag my channel because I'm just spitting facts. But even during that time, the Jews, remember the war going back between Italy and the Jews, right? So the Romans had a big problem on their hand. And instead of just warring with the Jews, they figured that they would challenge them with religion. And it worked. Okay. So you get a lot of responses to the Hebrew scriptures in the Greek scriptures. Okay. And I'm going to break that down for you if you just could stay with me here. So keep that part in mind. So when you get to the book of Matthew in the very beginning of the text, you get the whole, whoever wrote the book of Matthew, they're actually responding to the book of, I believe it's Isaiah, okay, when it talks about a virgin. But the word is mistranslated for virgin. It was actually a young woman, but because it's being mistranslated, whoever wrote the book of Matthew came up with this whole story about a virgin birth. And not only that, they are actually quoting even Jesus when he quotes in the New Testament, he's actually quoting from the Greek Septuagint Bible, not some original Hebrew text. Okay, that's very important to keep in mind too. But it's so much to cover, I can only touch on a few key points. Matthew gives you the whole birth narrative of Jesus, okay? And also Luke. Luke talks about it, but they don't agree. And I can show you, okay? But anyway, we're gonna get to it a little bit. In the book of Matthew, Herod the Great put out a decree when the Magi came and says, hey, listen, when did you see the star? Okay, 2 years. Okay, so go kill all the children under the age of 2. Well, we know from history that Herod the Great died in 4 BCE, roughly, okay? 4 BCE. So now you come to the conclusion, right? Because now we're establishing the birth of Jesus. Okay, we're establishing the birth of Jesus on Sunday. So if Herod the Great died in 4 BCE, now keep in mind, this is before the Common Era. So you have 4, 3, 2, 1, and then you have AD, 1, 2, 3, and now we live in 2026. Are you guys with me? Okay, so at 1, okay, so Herod died at 4. So you have 3, 2, 1, then you start the Common Era AD, 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way to 2026 where we are, okay? So if Herod the Great died in 4, okay, 4 BC, then you have to come to the conclusion that Jesus was born prior. According to Matthew, he's born prior to Herod's death in 4 BCE. I hope you guys are with me, okay? Because we know when Herod died, 4 BCE, all of this happened. So we could easily go back 2, 3, 4 years where he would allegedly put out this decree that we don't have any record in history, okay? That's a side point. Okay, this is Matthew, okay? So Matthew writes his book, and scholars believe it's maybe 10 years after, so maybe around 80, give or take, 80 AD, okay? Remember, Jesus died in 33, roughly. Okay, so now Luke writes his book. This is very important that you get this. In the book of Luke, chapter 2, Luke says this. So you have chapter 1, chapter 2. He says that Governor Cyrenius was installed. Now we know in history when he was installed. And basically, a way of looking at this is as though you write a book about Superman and you include Barack Obama. Barack Obama lived, but does that mean, right, that Superman lived, right? Okay, so anyway, Luke chapter 2 says, and I wish I had someone that could read it for me, but I'm trying to get through this quickly. Luke chapter 2 says that they were commissioned to participate in this census. And it says that Mary is great with child. So we know that Governor Cyrenius was installed in 6 AD. Wait a minute. So Mary is pregnant in 6 AD, according to Luke. But according to Matthew, Jesus was born over 10 years earlier. So how come these two gospels are getting Jesus' birth wrong? Well, they're writing literature, right? They're writing literature. Okay, now, I don't want to spend too much time on that, but you also have when Jesus is the age of 12, right? That number 12 is very important in the Egyptian culture, especially when it comes to, we won't get into all that. But anyway, when Jesus is 12, he's left in the temple. He's talking to the doctors. He's talking to these very intelligent individuals. That's based on Luke chapter 2, with him being born and then at the age of 12, okay? It's not based on, listen, if it was based on what Matthew said, because we know that Herod the Great died in 4 BCE, Jesus would have been in his late 20s, because these guys are contradicting each other, Matthew and Luke, okay? Now, you have some people trying to explain it away. Oh, Cyrenius was a governor before. No, it wasn't. You can't find that. But they try to come up, a lot of these pastors and individuals, I debate these guys, and they fall apart because they can't explain this. But not only that, let me give you another example. I want to challenge you guys. So now we looked at the birth of Christ, right? We looked at his birth. Now we're going to look at his death. And you have the 4 different gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. They all tell you a different story about the death, okay? When you notice in the book of Mark, you have a young man, he's sitting there, and because he has on white, people assume that that's an angel, okay? But then you go to the book of Matthew, the timeline is off of who sees Jesus, who's actually sitting there, who rolls away the stone. In the book of Luke, it's the same thing, okay? You have 4 different narratives in regards to the actual death. So now, when you actually look at the writing, you start to realize that someone is writing these stories. This is literature. Because if it was a real event, okay, and I know this is tough, you would have them jiving, because you know why? The Apostle Paul says that in Timothy, he says to Timothy, all scriptures are inspired of God and beneficial for teaching. So that means that this is the general consensus, that the Holy Ghost, the Holy Spirit, is what keeps all of these independent Bible writers to keep their stories together. So even though one man may have lived 1,000 years before the other, they were writing because they were inspired of God. That's the idea or the concept, okay? All right, so I want you to do this research based on how they can't even give you the accurate story about the time frame. You have the key individuals. Now, think about this, right? When I grew up in Christianity, I was under the impression that Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John were actually standing there. That's what was being taught, okay? They were there. One said that Luke was a doctor, and he's attending to the particular needs in this way, right? Okay. Another one, the bottom line is you thought that this was eyewitnesses, but even when you read the King James Version, I'll use that as an example. It says written according to, and then if you go and research it, you'll find out that these Bible writers were anonymous. Why anonymous, right? And then you learn about the Greeks and the Romans and how they were trying to respond to the Jews that they couldn't control, that were living within their dominion. Because see, when I actually went to Italy, I didn't realize it, but the Romans had control of over 6 million people, all the way around to where I just went to a couple of days ago, to Alexandria. So they were dominant and they were controlling people. And what did they ultimately control? They used Christianity. And if you did not convert, you die. It wasn't a holy Bible study, and let's pray together and let's hold hands. Okay? All right? And if you don't believe me, go back and watch my lives. I think it's at the temple where they actually show you, from the walls, but also explaining to you that if you did not convert, right, when they made Christianity the state religion, then you die. It's non-negotiable, okay? When I was in Turkey about 5 weeks ago, a lady that lived in Iran says that her next door neighbor, I've told the story before, she says that the protesters ran into the guy's house because he didn't answer in a timely fashion whether he had a protester harbored in his home. He was killed, and a protester too. That's just how those Romans would roll up on you and kill you. So either you become a Christian or you die. There was no baptism, no righteous talk, and let me tell you about the mighty name and the blood of Jesus. No, you're going to convert to Christianity. Now you guys saw this. I gave you the tour. I know a lot of you were watching, right? A lot of people are going to come in, they're new. They don't know anything about this channel or me from Adam, okay? But you heard it for yourself, okay? But I'm challenging you today that the Greeks and the Romans, what I learned by even going to Italy, they were writing literature. There is a group. Now, I wish I had more time to break this down. It's actually in the book of Luke. No, it's Matthew, where it actually tells you, I could find it for you, right? But the followers of Jesus was James, John. When he died, he left James in command. They were actually called the way people. That's why you get an argument between the Apostle Paul and James, right? over what you should eat. And if you really stop and think about what I'm telling you, Jesus left his followers, which were James, John, and a few others, right? The scriptures actually tell you that. So that's Paul is teaching something different than what Jesus left behind. But because Paul says that I found Jesus by spirit on the way to Damascus, now I'm the 13th apostle. Now you have to see, if you think about this, right? And this will be my last time on this channel. Paul is the reason why a non-Jew could be a Christian. Jesus died a Jew. Jesus didn't say, hey, I want you to be a Christian. If you take him at the face of life, he probably wouldn't have known what a Christian was based on how he died. In fact, the apostle Paul is the one that says, hey, listen, we have these followers of Jesus, of Christ, right? And they're called Christians. That's where it comes from, out of the Bible. So Paul, think about it. The Romans, the Greeks were locked out of this religion based on how Jesus died, right? I wish I could pause and tell you the story, but I don't want to get people lost, right? But let me do this. Could we just pause? And I'm going to give you a real sharp example right now. In the part of the book of Mark where it says that they would be able to go out and be bitten by snakes and not die, okay? Think about that. Bible scholars are saying that wasn't written in the original book of Mark. So you have to ask, who's manipulating a lot of these writings? Who's the individual that's doing it, right? So think about this. We learned about Horus, he was the Egyptian god, Horus, right? He had many traits similar to Jesus, but guess what? Remember I told you the Jews did not accept Jesus because they were expecting, they knew from the scripts just how the Messiah would come. And they said, well, Jesus don't fit the bill, right? So that's why they don't accept him, okay? When you actually go to the Torah, you'll see the different traits of the Messiah. He was not supposed to be raising the dead and healing the sick and turning water into wine. But guess what? That's what Horus was doing. Not turning water into wine, but Horus was performing miracles. Do you follow what I'm saying? Horus was a god that was performing miracles. Guess what he was doing? He was performing miracles that you could tread on venomous snakes. So whoever's trying to add this additional book, these additional verses in the final book of Mark, they're trying to make the Christ even more so synonymous to Horus. Okay. So now you start to realize that, and actually when you go back to the earlier scripts, a lot of these scribes were actually tweaking scriptures. Okay. And that's a whole different concept. So anyway, I just want to get back to what I'm trying to help you guys to understand. At the end of the day, when you actually take some time to try to understand, the Jews did not accept Jesus because they say he did not fit the bill of the Messiah. If you go research that tonight, you'll see what the Messiah, that's why they are still expecting him to come. Okay. But see, the Greeks and the Romans, they had a problem with the Jews. See what I mean? So now, all of a sudden, people are questioning whether Jesus existed, but they never questioned if Paul existed. When you actually go to the Vatican, they have Peter on one side as a statue, and they have Paul on the other side, and you walk out of the building. And then as you walk out of the main door, you see the keys of the kingdom that are etched in stone in the tile as you walk outside the door. That's a part of the scripture, right? I believe Matthew talks about when Peter was given the keys to the kingdom. Okay, so they have all this laid out. So the Jews don't accept Jesus because he's not the Messiah, according to them. That's why you see so many Jews today. They're not worshiping Jesus. You do have some of them that are converting or what have you. That's just life, okay? But now, there's no way for the Greeks and the Romans to really take over this new movement of Christianity, right? So what do? They get the Apostle Paul to open up for the Gentiles to become believers. So see, we're all Gentiles because we did not fall under the description of being a Jew. Paul's work, remember I told you he was actually fighting with, you can go to the book of Acts. They tell you that there's a fight that breaks out between Paul and Christ's brothers, right? Okay. Now keep in mind that Paul made himself an apostle. Well, not according to the text. The text says that he became an apostle because he's kind of like a lot of pastors today that they'll say, well, God told me to tell you while I was driving to church that you need to pay your credit card bills. So Paul had that kind of a moment. And that's what made him an apostle. He did not see Jesus in the flesh. That's what the Bible says. You follow what I'm saying? So, by means of Paul and his writings, right? He's saying it's okay for a Gentile to come in and enjoy the religion just like everybody else. So you see how Paul is the key ingredient. That where did Paul come out of? And did you read the book of Romans? What does Paul say? Right? Paul is telling, I want you guys to listen to what the apostle Paul is saying. And also Jesus, he's saying, pay your taxes. Right? What does he say about a master? Right? Paul, I believe in Romans chapter 13 or 15, he tells you that these Romans are put in place by God. The Romans are put in place by God? Oh, brother. Anyway, that's it for today. I wish I could just tell people, but it's hard, Keep obeying your earthly masters as you do the Christ, right? Obeying your earthly masters. When your master tells you to go 1 mile, you should go 2. What? Go 2? This guy's beating my ass every day. This is from the gospel. This is from Paul. You have to listen, right? Paul is telling you that the authorities are put in place by God. That means Donald Trump is put in place by God. If he tells you to go back to Africa, you do so with a smile. Okay, so now I could get into it with slavery. There's no doubt about it. I have a friend of mine, he's a neighbor, and he told me this story. He says his mother had some land in Africa. First thing, the white man shows up, and he's talking about God and Jesus. Next thing you know, they're taking her land. And she's lucky she got away with her life. Okay? There's a formula out there, but most people, we're in trouble, And half of the problems that we're seeing now, when you look at Nolan and all these cases and you see the disparities of life, a lot of that is based on what I've been trying to articulate to you today. But it's very hard because it took me a long time to wake up, And the way things look right now, it won't happen in my lifetime. So maybe this message is for a different generation. I mean, a lot of people are getting there, but some people are so snowed in, they won't believe you if it fell on their head. I could go on and on. So let me go deeper with you guys. This is for the pastors, the sharp guys, right? In the book of Mark, you have the transfiguration. Now you have the older characters who have come through the Hebrew scriptures. Remember, I told you the Greeks are trying to respond to the Hebrews. The Hebrews are not buying it, but they're trying to fulfill. That's why, look, check this out. In the book of Daniel, where it talks about God as being the Ancient of Days, in the book of Revelation, it tries to make Jesus to be the Ancient of Days. Research it. Whoever's writing the Greek scriptures are trying to respond to the Hebrews. And they're misapplying. I already showed you in the book of Matthew, they misinterpreted a word, Alma. Yeah, they misinterpreted the word Alma. In Isaiah, when it talks about a young woman, they misinterpreted in the Greek Septuagint to virgin, and that's why Matthew came up with a story about a virgin. Right? Research it. I wish I had more time, but also getting back to the transfiguration, right? Check this out. Look how deep it was with the Greeks and the Romans. Let me show you how crafty they were. The Jews believed in Moses and Elijah, right? So what did the Hebrew and the Greeks do? The Greeks and the Romans do, right? When they write the story about the transfiguration where the apostles were able to go up to the mountaintop with Jesus, what does Jesus say what does God say to those there? On the transfiguration, you had Moses and Elijah and you had Jesus, and they were lit up, right? Okay. And then the apostles are there too. They're able to see it. And God says, hear Jesus. That's what it was about. So now Jesus is who you need to follow. You see what I mean? Forget about, and I say that loosely, Moses and Elijah. Now you're going to hear Jesus. Okay. So it's very complex is what I'm saying. Whoever the writers are very complex. Here's another way that I'm going to close out this just to show you. And I know this is about the pyramids. I don't know how we got so deep. It is what it is, folks. But let me break this down for you. When Jesus, according to the writings, when he was on earth, okay? So we already looked at the birth and the death. None of these stories are Javan, okay? Do your own research, okay? That should tell you everything right there. But anyway, Jesus tells the apostles and those standing there that he was going to come back in their lifetime. You know, a lot of these religions, like even the one that I grew up in, they say the end of the world is coming. Jesus is coming back, right? Jesus told the apostles, there's so many different places, and you can go to Mark chapter 9, you can go to Matthew, I believe is 18, okay? But Jesus is talking to some of the individuals that are actually standing there, these apostles. So imagine, right? And this is what I often tell some of the Bible folk when I see them standing at carts out in the street, right? And I say, hey, listen, you're standing here preaching right now. And let's say you're very hungry. And so I tell you, listen, I'm going to come back today and bring you food, right? Would you expect me to come 2,000 years later? They say, no. I says, okay, so in the scriptures, Jesus says to the apostles, he says, some of you standing here will not taste of death until you see the Son of Man coming. That means you're not going to die before Jesus returns. Jesus was supposed to come in their lifetime. Jesus says this generation in Matthew, he says this generation will not pass away until, right? Okay, so he's actually telling individuals he's coming back. In fact, if you go to Thessalonians, where I'm going to be going on my next tour, when the Apostle Paul wrote the letter to those in Thessalonica, Paul says that those of us who remain will be caught away with Jesus. Paul is clearly telling you, right? He's clearly telling you he's expecting to be caught up in a rapture. Paul died if he lived at all. Okay, but go read 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, maybe verse 2, something like that. Okay, so what happens is when there was no return, well, they changed the goalposts. So when it comes to one particular religion, their leader says, well, now you need, we're going to change the timeline. He actually meant it would be 2,000 years later and after 1914. See, they have to change the goalposts, but in actuality, Jesus is telling individuals right there, I'm coming back. It's just like when I tell the people at the carts, hey, listen, if I tell you I'm bringing you food today, and if I come back 2 weeks later, you're going to starve to death. Okay. All right. So I know it's very complex. We started off on the pyramids. I'm going to close on the pyramids. And for those of you that are just coming in, I know this is not music to your ears. You have to take it for what it's worth. But here's the point of the matter. One thing for sure, and why it was so devastating, is because you have to ask yourself the question, how do you get the same exact stories coming in the Bible that are coming out of the walls of Egypt, like 2,000, 3,000 years prior to the Gospels being written, right? How come you don't have, you have King Tut, but you don't have Moses, Abraham, okay, right? How is this possible that you don't have any burial ground of any of these characters, okay? Very tough to understand and grasp it, but these are just hard questions. And again, this is the last time I'm going to touch it on the channel. But through my travels, especially in Rome, you start to realize the manipulation of life. And so now they have you believing in things you don't even believe in yourself anymore. You do something great, oh, that was Allah, you know, that was Jehovah. You do something bad, oh, that's the devil did it. No, Negro, that was you, because your parents are not teaching you how to behave and to keep your hands to yourself and not to be hitting women and not to be stealing or whatever else. That's you. It's not a devil, right? And people are not ready for this discussion. I know a lot of people are. I used to sit in that seat, and I'm glad that I was enlightened. And even when I debate some of the best pastors or some of these people, you know, in the end, it turns into a debacle of name calling. I'm like, bro, let's stay focused here. I'm showing you, why does Matthew and Luke contradict the birth of Jesus? That's just the basis of life. Why are they off by more than 10 years apart? Who wrote that? Why is that the case, right? And then it's a whole situation. Well, you know, and usually when you research it online, the explanation always comes from the Roman Catholic Church. The Romans, the same people that killed Jesus, allegedly, to the story. Who gets the most money? You would be shocked with the money that comes into the Roman Catholic Church. I'm going to leave it right there. Follow the money if you don't want to listen to what I'm trying to tell you. But this is why I say that this trip was devastating, because I knew how deep the rabbit hole was, but I didn't expect it to be like this, you know? I did not expect it. Now, what I do expect is that people are going to push back. You know, I get this all the time. My message is not even for this time. I'm hoping that maybe the next male that come along or whoever, they'll be able to find out this manipulation much earlier in life than I did, you know? I was involved in a religion. I went to their headquarters. I volunteered for 10 years, working 40 hours a week, all for the Lord. Yeah. And it was probably 20,000 of us. And that is a continuation until probably eternity, right? Okay. And see, back in those days when I was really in the thick of it, oh, the end of the world is coming tomorrow. Go tell everybody the end of the world is here. The end of the world is nigh. And I was back in my earlier years, 1920. I thought I could change the world. And now I've doubled that in some. Still no end of the world, right? Are they still pushing that narrative? The end of the world is so close, I could taste it. Well, hopefully you didn't starve to death, because a lot of you people that believe in that are dead. Your end came, but not the end of the world. Right? That's what's happening. And when you start to realize how people will manipulate you, nothing bothers me more to hear somebody come to me and say, you know, God told me to tell you. God ain't tell you to tell me nothing. If so, he would have told you COVID was coming, Pepper Jack. So he could tell you where I left my keys, but he didn't warn you to go tell the congregation a pandemic is coming. Oh, and I probably shouldn't use that word on YouTube. They're going to probably shadow me out. So as far as watching the world go, this is the final discussion about it. It'll be here for the record. For those that can profit from it, I hope you can. But, you know, brainwashing is a tough thing. That's something we really need to look at, right? And when you live the basis of your life based on invisible, no different than the Egyptians, they believe in myths. And then what the Greeks and the Romans did, they created a myth off of a real person. I don't know if they created the myth straight out of the air, or if they took a regular person and said that this man could raise the dead. Who's raising the dead today? Who's walking on water today? Right? See, I tell guys this, right? And they don't want to hear my message. It's all right. I have to get this out, and then I'm good. I say, I think after this message, I'm good for life. You know, whatever comes to me, right? When you study the Bible, because I used to speak in front of 20,000 people, right? I used to be that type of preaching type of guy, right? The Apostle Paul, he says that faith is the assured expectation of things hoped for, though not yet beheld. So in other words, you have, and that word, we need to look at that word faith, right? But you believe so strongly, even though it hasn't occurred, but you have that kind of faith, right? Paul said faith, now check this out. He says faith is the assured expectation of things hoped for. That means it's forward going, in the future, hoped for. But when you ask a pastor, did Jesus raise the dead and all of this stuff? Well, you just have to have faith. Wait, you got to have faith looking back too, brother? That doesn't make sense. Faith is forward. Why do you have to have faith to believe what happened in the past? Why? Because it doesn't make sense. If you send a guy out there today to walk on water, you may not see him again if he can't swim. Right? I know it's tough. It is what it is. I know people, they tend to unsubscribe with this type of a message, but this message needs to be heard, because manipulation is holding our people back more than anything else. And I hate to put it to you that way, but I'm just telling you what it is. You go to the community now, they get the pastor. When I was out there covering Carmelo Anthony trial, and the crowds were out there ready to go crazy and tear some things up. Oh, they had two people out there preaching, one lady, right? She's out there, oh, Jesus, well, Jesus, oh, in the mighty name. And these kids are like, woman, Jesus didn't save Carmelo or Austin. Austin died. Then they have this guy, he looked a little sophisticated. He's on a speaker, megaphone. Come on, disperse everybody. We're not going to solve any problems here. Carmelo is gone. Turn to Jesus. Turn your life around. You see how that works, right? That's by design, folks. Every time you try to solve a problem, they're going to tell you go pray. And you might die on your knees. Okay? Well, I know you didn't come here today to hear all that, but it is what it is, folks. If you unsubscribe, then, life is going to go on either way. But I hope you understand what they've done. I've laid some hard facts out here for you guys, man. All you have to do is go research it, right? I did not have the affordability to come to this realization in the best part of my life. I gave most of my life to religion, some other guy. It's just like I tell people this, right? My experience with religion, I was just like the guy on the yellow brick road. Follow the yellow brick road. Ooh, follow the yellow brick road. Oh, I want a brain. I want a heart. Ooh, ooh, ooh. And then you get to Oz, and there's a little bald head white guy behind the curtain when the dog pull it down. Follow the money. That's what you following the yellow brick road, they following the money. Now, think about this, right? If you really want to think about something, look at all the money that the churches, how much money have the black churches brought in? Let me use Carmelo Anthony. Let me start preaching to you guys. I'm gonna start preaching just like the pastors do, right? Carmelo Anthony family raised all this money because people like them and they want to support a black family. Who's giving the money? Oh, the blacks. They're giving all their money, right? Then the company say, well, no, you can't get the money, right? You can't get the money because he's a felon now, whatever reason, right? The other family, they're collecting money times 3. The father collected money, the mother collected money, and the boy collected money. Nobody's even complaining. Carmelo Anthony family raising money, trying to help him get a fair trial. All that money coming in. That's the same thing that happens every Sunday when you give money to the church. They take it and put it in the bank. The bank is using that money. They build in places that they would never let you go into. I don't want to start preaching. People just, it's like, I try to tell people, man, I'm like, listen, if we could figure this out and regroup, we would do much better because you're waiting on something that may not come. In fact, Jesus said he would come 2,000 years ago. He told them, some of you standing here will not taste of death until you see the Son of Man coming. Those people died. Do you understand what I'm trying to tell you? And the church tells you, oh, he's still coming, but he had a flat tire. No. And the problem is most of you you just know enough to be dangerous to get other people sucked into something that's going to ultimately clog up their life. But for the most part, the white man, he'll read the Bible, go to church, and have no problem going into a country and killing everybody. In fact, the writers of the Bible, that's what they were doing. All the while you sitting there waiting on something. As long as you stay on your knees begging and pleading, you're always going to be the food. They're going to have you on a stick, just like a shish kebab. So again, that's why I say my message is not for this generation. It'll be probably 30 years from now. The younger generation, they're starting to wake up. A lot of us, grandma and grandpa got us snowed in, man. We just waiting on something to happen. Instead of going out there and making it happen for yourself, you sitting around just waiting. Meanwhile, other races are advancing more and more. They believe, but they don't believe enough that they're not going to go and handle their business. That's why we're so behind. And I'm okay with people not being okay with the channel, but for those who find freedom, Now, am I saying that there's no God or what have you? I'm not saying any of that. What I'm saying is everything that they put forward so far wasn't even meant for you. You mean to tell me, how are you putting yourself in the seat of somebody? Jesus didn't come to Africa, to the Sahara. Now you got the Hebrew Israelites. Now they're the Jews. Oh, we the real Jews. Negro, have you lost your cotton picking mind? Oh, we the real Jews. It was all meant for us. Do you even know have you been there? Have you been to Egypt? Do you know the geography and how far it's away from Africa, brother? Well, how do you know you're a Hebrew Israelite? My bloodline. Dude, you don't even know your grandfather. So how do you know anything about Israel? Even when you look at the word Israel, when I was out there, right? I'm over my time. Israel, I-S is ISIS, R-A is Ra, and then L is Ra-El. Can you see what's in front of you? If it was a snake, it would just bit you right on your nose. Maybe that's what you need because people just have a hard time. I really have to take a lot for me to stomach some of these pastors. begging for money, keeping people trapped into a system, not even created for them. You know, you got it because of slavery, Jack. You wasn't even worthy. I know you guys like to say worthy. I am worthy. He is. No, you're not worthy. You got it through slavery. The pastor that the master that was raping and killing your ancestors was worshiping to your same God. Like, what's wrong with you people, man? I mean, I used to be that person too. Pastor is letting you have, I mean, not pastor, might as well say pastor, but master is letting you have a church and praying because they know you're going to collect the money. It's going to go to the local town. They're going to use the money from the black folk to help build this village, right? That's why these cities are so grand. And we're going to make them do the work for it. And then on Sunday, master going to go to the nice church. Yes, sir. And the Negro is going to go to the little shanty church. Probably don't even have a bathroom. And you're praying to the same God that master gave you. I know you don't want to hear it. Grandma don't want to hear it. And that's why you're stuck right now. And you're believing in invisible things. That's a terrible. White folks don't do that. A lot of them believe in science. That's why we're behind. They got you out here. Oh, yeah. La da 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 da. Right? When I was out, and this is no pun to Egypt, but when the prayer came over, the loudspeaker in the town, everybody all of a sudden they turned into like zombie. I mean, I've never seen anything. We were talking about it. Like when that prayer happens, everybody falls in line. That's power. You know? And guess what? The Christians look at their religion, they say, oh, these people are crazy. They worship a false God. You know what they do? They turn around, they look back at the Christians and they say, no, you worshiping, and your God didn't come back. And you guys can't even agree if Jesus is God or the Son. Depending on what Christian you're talking to. You talk to a Jehovah's Witness, they're going to say Jesus is the Son. They're reading the same Bible. You talk to a Baptist, maybe he's going to say Jesus is God. They all read the same Bible. And you could get two pastors to debate it. Yeah. Meanwhile, yeah, I'm going to end this out, because it's a tough subject. And again, this is my last time touching this on this channel. I will be, believe me, I will be breaking down this stuff more on a different channel for those who are inclined to want to understand and know more. And we're going to do projects because what I found is when I do live videos, people come in, they miss the first 2 hours. They come in, oh, you don't know what you're talking about, blah, blah, blah. They write something, boom. But I'm going to put it together to where we're going to actually, because I have slides and presentations and all of that, we're going to actually go to Matthew. We're going to see what Matthew says. Matthew is saying that Jesus was born prior to Herod the Great dying in 4 BCE. Boom. No doubt about it. Then Luke, who's written next, says that Governor Cyrenius, right, we know from history, he's the governor in 6 AD. And Luke in chapter 2 says Mary is great with child. She's pregnant with Jesus. Mary cannot be pregnant with Jesus in Luke chapter 2 over 12 years after Jesus was born, according to what Matthew said. The other thing I learned while I was there at the pyramids is that in the book of Luke, it says, let's see, let me make sure I have it right. Book of Matthew, when it says that Jesus went to live in Egypt. Well, the Egyptians don't have any hardcore evidence of that. There's just so much there. But one thing is for sure, that the Roman Catholic Church had a very strong hand in so much, and that's all I can say for right now. And I wish you guys could actually go and see what I saw in the Vatican and on the tours where you learn so much about the entire picture. And also when I was just in Egypt. And when I go to Greece, I already know what I'm going to see, but we're going to learn about how they were able to really create this pantheon of God. They learned it so good from the Egyptians. Then they said, so check this out. This is my last point. The Greeks and the Romans, right, and others, they learned concepts from Egypt. Then, after Christianity was the finished product, they say, now you're going to be a Christian, and if you don't, you die. Non-negotiated. And at that same moment, right, they said, oh, by the way, your pyramids and all of your beliefs, that's paganism. All that voodoo, y'all going to cut that stuff out, right? That's lower Africa or whatever. I'm just giving you guys an idea. So you see how that works? Then they write a new history. So now the future generations, they don't even know anything about the real past. Rockefeller was a genius in getting the universities to rewrite history. Well, we don't want them to know they came, some of them maybe were already here, or we don't want them to know that. They're going to start saying, this is my land. Yeah. Anyway, I will go to the comments, but I'm not even really talking for today because our people are just so, you try to talk to them about it, they don't even have the, I'll leave it at that. All right, so let's see what, I know I'm getting beat up pretty badly out here, but it is what it is. I'll try to catch as much as this that I can. We have a show tonight at 7 p.m. We'll be back to business, okay? Rich says, why do you think the pyramids in America, because the Israelites are here, okay? I've actually been to some of those pyramids too, okay? I've been to some of those pyramids too. Definitely not what I saw in Egypt. So that is a big question as far as why there are pyramids. It's almost like too, if you say, well, why are so many square buildings around? You know what I mean? Like, doesn't mean that they communicated. Maybe so. I wasn't there. I really don't know, but that's a good question. All right. So let's see here. Christ went to go hide in Egypt and blended in with everybody. That's a good argument for his complexion, right? But the modern Egyptians don't want to talk about color. Well, there's a reason for that. Okay. If you look up the official name of Egypt, you'll understand why. I don't want to speak on it. But look at what the official name of Egypt is right now. You understand why they want to talk about color. Egypt has been whitewashed too. Everything's whitewashed. That's how you win, right? The winners rewrite history. They burn everything, right? When we were in Alexandria, we learned that they burned the library. Well, who knows if that really happened? Who knows what information? That's probably how you could have learned how the pyramids was really built. But guess what? They were burned, okay? All right, the oldest pyramids are in Sudan. Thank you very much. Rich says Egypt means slavery, bondage. Okay, they don't have, I can tell you, if that's the case, they don't have that on the walls. They have Misr, they have the original name is Kemet, and they also call it the Black Land. Okay, all right, very good. Grounded Sky says, thank you for taking the time to be here. I'm glad to do it. I had to get this out of the chamber, as they say, because so many people are still mentally in bondage. And that was a lot of people think that AI is the best thing ever created. No, it's the holy books, because it has your mind, your whole heart, and your whole soul. You can't beat that. AI will never beat that. You know, my mother died because she wouldn't have a blood transfusion because of a religion. Think about that. She could have been maybe still living. But the religion says if you take that blood transfusion, you're going to be, at the time they call it disfellowshipping, and now you can't talk to your family. So you can't take that blood transfusion. Then you start to find out years later, oh, they changed the policy. They interpret the scripture different. Yeah, but that doesn't bring back a person that died. Yeah, real talk. Craziness, insanity, you know. I was too young to know what was happening, you know. Okay, so let's get here. Oh, Empress says they want to disconnect you from your tribe. Anyone awakened is a problem. That's it. Yeah, they want you, a guy like me, you're out of here. For so many reasons, right? A guy like me, they want him out. They want to finish him out by sundown because he's causing a derision. He's got the Negroes trying to figure out how to get out of here, and we're not going to allow that. That's just how it goes down. So, hey, it is what it is. I know what time it is, you know. I'm giving you guys the real deal today for sure. A lot of people don't want to accept it. But I guarantee you, if you go research it, you'll see that I haven't been just up here talking. I've been giving you some solid information, right? Like, listen, let me tell you, I spent so much time. I used to give public lectures and all that. I never realized that the Apostle Paul was teaching a different faith and ministry than Jesus. And the Bible shows it to you. I didn't know that Jesus left a different group of his followers who were all Jews. And his brother James was the leader of the pack. I didn't know that. Reading the Bible, that was never taught because it's based on a religion. They didn't focus on that. So that's why Paul is arguing about what you should eat. Paul is saying, listen, you can eat whatever you want to eat. But the Jew says, oh, no, you better not eat that pork. Paul saying, hey, You know, you can eat what you want to, right? Or what about when he gets into an argument, him and Peter, about who you can sit down and have a conversation with, you know? You know? See, the thing about the Jews and the Gentiles, most people don't realize what the Gentiles are. The Gentiles are the nations. In fact, Jesus and Paul refer to the, as the Romans as Gentiles, right? They're the nations. And guess what? All of us that would convert to being a part of it would be considered Gentiles. So that's why Christianity came along. It was a more appealing religion because everybody could be in, right? Remember the Ethiopian eunuch, right? Let's get baptized. Let's get it going. Let's pray over you. Let me rub a little oil on your head. But then I went to the pyramids and it's not that way. If you don't convert, we're going to kill you. You understand? That's a big difference. Oh, man, I know it's a tough message, man. I didn't really want to do this today, but I said, let me get it out because I may not have the opportunity on this channel again. It's a tough situation because I know a lot of people were just taught different things, right? But the problem is they don't research. They just, a lot of times even, right? Let me use an example. Lately, with this administration from Donald Trump, you have, you have individuals that are quoting scripture. Remember Pete Hegseth? It's not even in the Bible, what he's quoting, right? What about Ted? What's Ted's last name? I drew a blank. Ted, the senator down in Texas. He's saying, I showed you guys what Ted said, right? Somebody in the comments is going to give me Ted's last name. What's Ted's last name? Ted, what's his last name, Ted? No, it's Ted. He's the senator down in Texas. What's his name, Ted? Ted Cruz, yeah. Ted Cruz. Check this out, right? And I don't want to stay here too long. I want to spend the rest of my day doing something cool. Ted says this, right? Now, he's a high-ranking official. Ted says that because of his faith, he always thinks about the scripture in Deuteronomy, where basically it says those that bless Israel will be blessed, and those that hate or whatever Israel will, basically be punished, right? So he's making decisions about the American people based on Israel, and he's basing it on a state of Israel, Zionism, that they're trying so hard to connect to ancient Israel. You see how that works? So they're getting all these passes and everything else because of his faith in God. So now check this out. You might say, well, who cares, right? Let me tell you. So now we go to war with Iran because of Israel, and you're okay with it, right? You say, well, I could pay gas a little bit more. Maybe I won't buy that extra slice of pizza. But then they draft your son. Now shoot, what's going on here? Wait a minute. Oh, well, you should have been paying attention what Ted Cruz told you. Now it's knocking at your door. And then one day somebody may really knock at your door talking about your son. Yeah, this is how it happens, right? But he's making decisions based on scripture because he goes to church on Sunday. He hears about Israel. Is he an Israelite? No, right? Don't have a clue. He would not be able to swing with me when it comes to the scriptures on a cloudy day or a clear one, right? But he's quoting scriptures, but not knowing the background, right? Not understanding who Paul is, who Peter is. And why is Peter so important in the Catholic Church? And why is the Catholic Church leading the world? And why are they, if you look up how much money they bring in, it would blow your mind. And because they have all the money, they can now control the policy. Not only do you have a lot of the leaders that are Catholics, so they're going to make decisions in the interest of their faith, but also the Catholic Church, they put out a lot of money to control narratives. You don't know that, though. You're so busy laying your fruit and your sacrifices at the altar. And I get it. It's beautiful to be able to say that I'm going to live again. I'm going to go to paradise. All of that. Paradise is a concept that came out of Egypt. I said, what? Yeah, paradise? I thought paradise was what Jesus talked about. No, paradise came out of Egypt. I have these discussions with guys who have woken up too, and it's so amazing because they often would point out things to me too, But I used to be in the seat. I was at the headquarters of a big religion. And you know what? let me tell you what happened. One Saturday, I went out knocking on some people's doors, you know. The kingdom of God is at hand. The end of the world is near. Come and let us baptize you in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. You know, yeah. So I knocked on the door of a college professor. And he says to me, he says, you know, the guy who started your religion, did you know that he was a Seventh-day Adventist and he was a Mason and all? I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. Jesus started my religion. No. Jesus didn't start your religion, young man. You need to go research. He says, how could you be out here knocking on my door trying to convert me when you don't even know who started your religion? So I said, oh man, I have to go research, you know. Typically, when you're involved in any religion, they don't want you to go do research. The internet is a faith killer, right? I'm more like Socrates. That's why I'm looking forward to going to Greece, because I like to get into the intellect, right? But anyway, I started researching. I went home. I looked on the internet, and the leader of the religion was buried under a pyramid. I said, oh, God, what kind of religion am I in? Why is he buried under a pyramid? Then I started researching the religion, and I started to realize, man, I've been snowed in. So that's why I say I was devastated when I went to the pyramids, because it was there all along. It was there all those years that I gave, you know. I was a volunteer for righteousness, doing it all for God. Only person benefiting from that was the religion and those that sit at the top. That's the bottom line. If you're involved in a church and you think, I mean, you see the mega pastors, it's a shame, you know, they need a $70 million airplane. I remember when I was a kid, the pastor down in North Carolina said his dogs had a house with an air condition. And here we are struggling with no running water. As a kid, sometimes when I fly to Charlotte, I see his name. They've named highways after him. I said, man, this guy his dogs used to have their own house with the air condition. That's the kind of pastor he was. That's some good preaching there, boy. Yeah. So there you have it. Thank you guys for tuning in today. I know it's a tough situation, right? Not everybody's going to get it, but I guarantee you, if you listen to my message today and you go research, eventually on this yellow brick road that you're, follow the yellow brick road. Ooh, follow the yellow brick road. Ooh, I want a heart. I want a brain, you know, whatever it is you want. When you get to Oz and that dog pulled down the curtain and you see a little white man, bald headed, and he tell you, Negro, I can't give you a brain. I can't give you anything. Everything that you have is all within you. Believe it. Don't blame it on the devil. If you a low down, lousy, coward, beating women, whatever it is, stop blaming it on the devil. That concept came out of Egypt too. Mythical. Yeah. But you didn't know that, right? That whole concept of this devil. And then you say you do something good, right? Oh, that was God. God answered my prayer. I'm not saying there is no God. I'm just saying that the way that they've spin it to us, I could have probably done the same thing, you know. There's a guy starting a new religion right now in every state, in every city in America, right? Sometimes you have to get up and do for yourself. We are living in some tough times. I started off, I want to give you guys a personal testimony, and I'm not gonna go here again, you know. I'll give you a personal testimony. Sorry, it's the airplane, 14 hours on the airplane. I always seem to get sick. I don't know why. Anyway, probably a low constitution, right? So let me give you guys this closing statement. By the way, New Jerseyan is my cousin, right? She knows my story, you know. But let me put it to you this way. I'm going to be vulnerable because, you know, my grandfather always said, I am who I am and I don't give a damn. Yeah. I know that's bad, but that's all a part of the picture, all right? Don't give a damn. You start this journey of life, and that's what I did. And so it just so happened that my family had been, a lady knocked at my grandmother's door one day and she became, you know, a Jehovah's Witness or whatever. So now everybody throughout our family are Jehovah's Witnesses, this and that, right? So you live your entire life thinking the end of the world is coming. So you don't need to go to college. You need to go to the headquarters. You shouldn't have kids. They even tell people you don't really need life insurance. All of this. Yeah, that's just one religion. There's other religions too. There was a period where we were Baptists or whatever, you know. But you live your whole life with this sense of urgency that there's no tomorrow. Then one day you wake up and you're 50, 60, 70, and you're about to die, and you thought that the new world was coming. There's nobody. Who are you going to go to complain? Why you guys tell me the end of the world was coming back in 1985? That person is dead. There's no recourse. Yeah. You got the new pastor. You know, you see little Johnny, he's 5 years old. One day he becomes your pastor. He repeating what he heard. You see what I mean? But you live your life and you make your decisions based on the same thing that the Egyptians did, a myth. I can't tell it to you any better. One day you're going to have to confront what I'm telling you. Now, whatever you have to tell yourself to get through the moment, then be blessed, right? I've already accepted my fate. And the word fate is another nonsense word too, but in a way it sets you free, because now I start to realize, listen, they had me believing my mom was coming back from the dead. So, you know, that felt good. Oh man, my mom's she's died from cancer, but she'll be back. And I can't wait to see her. So let me go make sure I don't have any sex. My God. Yeah, make sure you don't have sex, because God is very concerned about where you put your penis. God damn, what the hell? You know, make sure you don't drink any alcohol. All while the scripture says, do not be gluttonous. But everybody in the church is fat. Now, I'm not saying, you get what I'm saying. Some people are overindulging. You know, some people are bigger by nature. That's okay. But what I'm saying is, they want to point at all of these things, and it's the concepts of men. That's what you're doing. Yeah, that's what it is. And it's very concerning, because I remember as a Jehovah's Witness, right? If somebody in my family died, I could not even go into church because I felt like the devil was there. That's what they teach you, interfaith, right? I wouldn't even want to go to the funeral because I'm like, oh my God, I might be destroyed at Armageddon. Oh, God's going to destroy the earth in the second coming. I could really break it down, but this is not the place for that. I'm just trying to, in my conclusion, help you guys to understand that a lot of people want you to believe in imaginary things because it puts them at an advantage while you're running in the field. They're running to get the food. Do you understand what I'm telling you? Hey, Mel, go run over there. There's gold beyond that hill. While I'm running to the gold, they walk laughing at me to the food. By the time I get back from running to the gold, now I'm so mad at the guy for sending me on a wild goose chase, I don't even have an appetite anymore. Right? Yeah. You know, I have these moments where I just wish I could wake the world up like, hey, buddy, wake up, man. There's a reason why this country is built on. Let me do this last one and then I'll be out of your hair, okay? Because I'm in court all the time. I'm going to leave out, I promise you, after this one, okay? Then we'll come back on tonight for the show. Let me break this down for you. And this is going to be amazing for me. I need to get this out of my spirit, right? Okay. I could debate you on the whole spirit and soul. Oh, that's a whole thing too, but I have to save you. But let me break this down for you. The United States, right, is built. That's why a lot of people want reparations, because a lot of it was built on the slavery. Nowadays, they want you to forget about slavery. Remember, I told you in Italy, I learned that the winners write the history. Okay, so if you're a Black person that your heritage was involved in slavery, okay, that means you were on the losing side of the street. And that means that, think about it this way. If my grandmother had $2,000 on the shelf when she died, rest in peace, and let's say the neighbor came in and took her $2,000, okay? Then he gave the $2,000 to his son, okay? Now we got what, two additional generations? He gives the $2,000 to his son, they still get the benefit off of what my grandmother did in chains. But the fifth generation says, hey, forget about that. You didn't get 2,000. Nobody handed you 2,000. That's what they sound like when they say, oh, you didn't get anything, so you shouldn't get reparations. But yet we drive by these magnificent buildings, even the White House, and you know that somehow your ancestors had something to do with it. Couldn't read those books, but they could sure do the sweat, the pain. Some of them died. They fell off the scaffolding. Okay, that's just, we charge that to the game. Okay. So here's the deal. Do not be mistaken to know that it still is an unanswered problem, because it started off that way in this particular country. And I love this country, especially if you go to Egypt and you see what people have to go through. Okay. Now I say all of this to kind of set the stage for what I'm about to say. The country was built on the Bible. Yeah. When you go to court, right? What do? I sit there. They put the Bible in front of you. Put your hand on it. Do you swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth? So help you God. Okay. So here's the thing though. They accept God. But if the guy like Carmelo Anthony, I'll use him as an example. If he said, I did it because the devil made me do it, they'll say, oh, the devil don't exist. No, that's a myth. Oh no, there's no devil. You could say you're gonna behave, or you're gonna not lie because of God. But when you flip the same Bible on them and say, well, the devil told me to do this, they say, you're out of your mind. You see what I mean? Right? And if you go to church and the Spirit is in you and you start jumping up and, you get the Holy Ghost and all that stuff, right? That's fine, okay, in the parameters of the church or your home. But if you go to the emergency room and you tell them, oh, he got the Holy Ghost and the Spirit, they're going to put you in the straitjacket, Pepper. They're not going to accept it. There's a double standard. Do you follow what I'm saying? See, when you go to the book of Mark, I think it's Mark chapter 9 again. There's a story about a man, and he goes to Jesus' disciples and he says, listen, my son, he's gnashing his teeth. He's foaming at the mouth. Okay. And the disciples even asked Jesus, they say, well, why couldn't we cast out this demon from this man's boy? And Jesus says, well, this one is only by prayer and fasting. Jesus healed the young man, right? In Bible times, they say he had a demon. But by means of science, we realized that he was just an epileptic. He had epilepsy. Same thing as Carmelo Anthony, by the way. It has nothing to do with what I'm saying. But you start to realize what I'm trying to tell you here. Okay, very important. Okay, very important. I know it's not an easy subject, and I know it's one of those subjects where people, when they start to wake up or they see or hear something goes contrary to what they've been taught, it's a tough moment, okay? I get it. I really do. And this is no attack on it. Now, when it comes to God and all of that, everybody's entitled to believe what they want to, right? This message is not saying there's no God, okay? But we will say that going back to the earliest civilization, the Egyptians believe in mythical gods. The Greeks and the Romans, they turned a man into a myth. Okay? So it's so deep that you go out there and try to walk on water and see what happens to you. Okay? Try to raise the dead. Just give it a shot. Do you have anybody that's capable of doing it? But see, by means of man, they've constructed these ideas that has people trapped mentally. And it's very tough. It's sad to see. And people become very judgmental when you try to point it out to them. See, that's the way it works. If you don't believe me, the next time you see individuals preaching on the street, and sometimes, I'll just go talk to them. The minute I try to ask those questions about Matthew and Luke and whether they contradict Jesus' birth by 12 years, they're like, oh, I never knew that. Get away from me. Oh my God, that makes me start thinking about reality. You're interrupting my fantasy. Get away. That's just how it goes. But if you're listening to them, they'll preach to you all night. Come to your house. They'll even burp you before you go to bed, as long as you listen to the word. But if you stop and ask a question, I asked those tough questions. You saw it at the pyramids. When I asked the tour guide a few of those questions, oh, no, we're not taking questions right now. And then after they learn and they know that you have knowledge, it's like, oh, do not take his questions. Tell that Negro to go sit in the back of the bus. I'm making it up. That's not what I was told. But, that's just how this life works. Okay. That's just how it works. I want to thank you guys for tuning in today. Brown Sky says, nobody wants to test their faith. We all want to believe in the hope of another tomorrow. Yeah, that's fine. And all of us have a different way of getting there, right? Whichever way it takes you to get through a tough moment, I don't want to interrupt that. I wouldn't dare go to a person and start talking like this. They're battling cancer. Life is tough, Whatever it takes for you to get through your moment of despair, I would never interrupt that. But there's a time and place for everything, right? That's in the Bible. King Solomon, according to King Solomon, right? That's another thing we learned. Prayer. I always thought the prayer was a Bible concept. I thought that the Psalms was a Bible concept. Nope, we saw that in the pyramids. And if I'm going to put it on the page today, the sayings, what is his name? Amenelope? Was it Amenelope, I believe? The Psalms were written word for word right off of the Egyptian walls. Exact words. Plagiarism at its best. I'm going to put it out there for you guys to see it. But anyway, that's it for today, folks. As far as this go, this is not a subject that I want to touch on, but because I'm moving all of this travel and Bible and all that stuff, because this is what I do on the day to day, I would love to talk about it, but it's an acquired taste, and not everybody wants to hear it. So today I wanted to get this out of the way. We go back to our normal schedule, and that'll be it. You won't hear about any of this from me again as far as this channel goes. All right. So thank you very much. Thank you very much for all of the support, and even those that do not agree. I want to close out with this final words to you guys. The Romans, okay? I want to try to break this down in the last 5 minutes, all right? Because there's going to be some people that come through and listen to me, and this is going to take hold. But I don't want to just give you some ideas like I'm just giving you any information. So I'm going to try to give you a summation of life by means of the Bible. This is what I study, but I actually travel to these places. I'm going to Greece next. Hopefully I can go to Israel when the war tampers down. That would be the ultimate for me, to actually go to the Holy Land, get to Jerusalem. Their temple is very similar to what I saw with the Egyptians. All of this stuff comes from Egypt, most of it, okay? Some of it is pulled from different ways, but I think I covered it tremendously. I'm sorry. So you have the Hebrews, the Jews, okay? God's chosen people. Many people feel it's synonymous with the Israelites, Israel. When you go back into history, do yourself some research, you'll find that there were no Israelites building these pyramids, okay? Do your own research. There's no Israelites in the wilderness. I'll challenge you to go and do your research. If you have 1 million people and they're only walking in a circumference of a certain amount of miles on their trek, and they go for 40 years, the distance probably, I'd say, from New York, maybe Delaware, not even, somewhere in Jersey. There's no cups and clay and 1 million people walking together. There's no Moses to be found. I challenge you. I respond to every message. Come after me. Okay. All right. Now, I'm not trying to take away, because even the Egyptians, we learn, a lot of them even believed in Horus and these gods. They believed that it was actually real. And that's okay too, but it was based on mythology. The Greeks and the Romans took this same ideology. They took the same concepts, right? And you can actually see that they were implementing it. And if you really break it down and you try to understand the Greek scriptures, why is it written in Greek? Why is the gospel writings, why are they anonymous and not written by real people? And why do they have American names? There's no J until the 14th century. So there's no Jesus. So why don't we just say Yeshua, right? Okay, there's no John. There's no J, okay? But there's a reason for all of this, right? And then I won't even get a chance to get into King James, and he was studying demonology. And if I get into King James, you guys will really understand the Bible more, but I can't get into it today. So you have the Hebrew scriptures, Genesis to Malachi. In the book of Malachi, it says that Elijah has to come back before the Christ. That's why when you get to the Gospels, it actually says, now, several times Jesus says that John was Elijah. Research it. But if you go to the book of John, John says, no, I'm not Elijah. Research it. It's just replay this. This video hopefully will be here until I'm long gone. Okay. So you have the Hebrew scriptures, then you have the Greek scriptures from Matthew all the way to Revelation. In the Greek scriptures, whoever's writing these texts, they're trying to fulfill the prophecies that were meant for the Hebrews. That's why I gave you the example in Daniel where it talks about the Ancient of Days, which means God. Whoever wrote Revelation tried to make Jesus the Ancient of Days. Do the research. It's right there. That's why the book of Mark, right? I could really go on, man. This is what I study. In the book of Mark, it starts off, Jesus is baptized, and then God says, right, this is my son, my approved, the Holy Ghost, right? Holy Spirit. But then Mark is the first book. The actual book ends, I believe it's chapter 16, verse 8. And basically the women ran off and they told no one. That's the way the original book of Mark ends. Someone wrote an additional, let's say maybe 12 verses. And now Jesus went, now they went off and they told, you get the whole narrative. Okay. All right. And that's where you pick up about, you'll be bitten by serpents and you won't die. You get all of these things. Okay. So somebody's writing additional things. If you really research the scribes, they're actually changing verses and all of this stuff. But anyway, let's get to Matthew. In the book of Matthew, and I'll try to, on the next channel, I'm going to break this down. But when you go to Isaiah, when there's the prophecy, first you have to understand, Jesus and the apostles are not quoting from the Hebrew text. All of the quotes come from the Greek Septuagint Bible. Okay, that's very important. And now you got to wonder, why are they quoting instead of quoting from the original Hebrew? Jesus should know the Hebrew because he's God to a lot of individuals. He's quoting from the Greek Septuagint. In the Greek Septuagint, in the book of Isaiah, when it's talking about the young lady and she's going to give birth, right? The actual word is Alma. It means young woman. But because it's the way it's translated to the Greek Septuagint, whoever wrote the book of Matthew saw virgin. And because that person saw virgin, now they write this whole virgin narrative into Jesus. All you have to do is research it. Okay? So that's a very important, that ties into what I told you about the birth and how Matthew and Luke are off by over 12 years. Okay? So then check this out. When you go read Luke, I want you guys to do it tonight. Do me a favor. Read the birth narrative from Matthew and read the birth narrative from Luke that many people use for Christmas, and you'll see they don't jive. Now, here's the thing, right? I'm going to break this down as much as I can. Mark starts off, Jesus is a grown man. He's getting baptized, right? God says, this is my son. Whoever wrote the book of Matthew gave you the whole birth narrative and also tied in John and how John came about, right? He paved the way for Jesus, right? Okay, Luke gives you another birth narrative, right? Okay. And then when you go to John, John takes it all the way back to in the beginning was the word. Whoever writes John wants to make Jesus God. In the beginning was the word, and the word was God. See that? But see, John was written after the first three books. So they started with his birth. They started with his baptism with Mark. That's the first book that was written. Allegedly, it was written in Alexandria, where I was a couple days ago. Matthew is the next book written, right? It gives you the birth narrative, right? It also expounds on the death, okay? Adds a lot of details. Luke is the same thing. But then John it starts off with Jesus being in heaven. In the beginning was the word, and the word was what? Everybody knows that scripture pretty much, right? Okay. And then you read the entire book of John, you start to realize that Jesus it's making him synonymous to God. That's why in the Christian beliefs, you could have two pastors from two different churches, and they could debate, no, Jesus is the Son of God. No, Jesus is God. See how that works? Right? They're all reading the same Bible. Okay? So I'm just trying to help you to understand that. Now, in order to get this whole narrative with Jesus, the Apostle Paul is very important. Okay? Very important because because of the Apostle Paul, now Christianity, right, is open up to all the nations. So now Roman can be a Christian, right? Because Jesus died a Jew. Most people don't realize that. His followers were Jews. When they found the Dead Sea Scrolls, right? Because there's so many different books of the Bible. You have a book of Mary. Judas Iscariot has a book. There's so many different books, right? But these books were carefully chosen, and it had a lot to do with the Roman Catholic Church. People don't know that, right? Had a lot to do with it, okay? So anyway, let's wrap this up. So you have the Hebrew scriptures, you have the Greek scriptures. I'm showing you in a way how they can't even get Jesus' birth and his death correct. So what do you have? If you go to anyone, I'll challenge you. If you can pin down his birth and his death as a real person, I'll give you $500. So there's your challenge. Go ahead. Okay? Pin it down. You're going to see. This will prompt you to go and actually do the work that I've done and many others. Okay? All right? It's nearly impossible to get all of this to jive. There's a reason for that. Okay? The Greeks and the Romans, when I went to Rome, their whole endeavor is what I began to realize is that the Jews were really giving the Romans, and the Greeks were basically the advisors for the Rome. You know, they learned a lot from the Greeks. Even the Greeks had a whole method of teaching pretty much like a Bible concept, and then they turn you into a slave. The Romans did it. Then we see what happened in America. Welcome to America. Take your Bible, and you're going to be a slave. Okay, there you go. Don't believe me? Go read. Okay, so anyway, so you have the Hebrew scriptures. Then you have the Greek scriptures, which were written in that time period. All of it hinges, I would say, on the Apostle Paul. The Apostle Paul writings were around the 40s. Okay, most Bible scholars will tell you that, around the 40s. The Gospels were written another 30 years later. So let's go back and look at this. I told you about Matthew. Matthew says that Herod the Great put out a decree to have the kids 2 years and younger killed. Herod died in 4 BCE. 4, 3, 2, 1. Right? This is according to Matthew. So Jesus would have been born before Herod died. Okay? So then you have 4, 3, 2, 1. Then you have 1, 2, 3, all the way to 2026. But 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, Luke tells you that Mary is pregnant with Jesus. That's at least 12 years different than what Matthew told you in the story about Jesus. Okay? So it's very important to understand that. When you read Luke further, you'll find that when Jesus was 12 years old, he was left behind in the temple. So you go to 12. That's based on him being born in Luke chapter 2 in 6 AD. You follow that? If you add the years before Herod the Great died, now you got to add at least 12 years to that. Jesus would have been 26 years old, something like that. Do you follow what I'm saying? So what I gathered and what I've seen in Egypt is that the Greeks and the Romans, they had cornered the market. They had access to all of the Egyptian pyramids. They saw how humans reacted to these gods, whether they were real or myth, and they went and they pulled off the same thing, no doubt about it. If you go and you look at scholar, I think his name is Henry Clark. I think he breaks it down. I think I'll post his video of how the Greeks and the Romans turned a man into a myth, right? That's why you can't make the facts solid. You can go back and they can tell you about Cleopatra. They can show you King Tut. I saw the man laying there. Now, it could have been made up or whatever. I won't get into that. But at least they have the remains of King Tut some 3,000 years before the Christ. Okay? The Apostle Paul, when you go to the Vatican, he is a central figure. And they also have Peter, and they have both of their remains. They allegedly, they have these places where people actually come and they just start praying. But Paul is teaching a different ministry than Jesus. Think about that. He's teaching a ministry that benefits the Greeks and the Romans. Because now anybody can become a Christian. Whereas with the Jews, it's a different ball game, right? And that's how Jesus would have left here when he died if he was a real man. He left here as a Jew, born a Jew, practiced as a Jew, and so did the apostles. Okay? So it's very important to understand how all of this works. Bringing Paul into the equation, it does a good service because Paul says Jesus was real. He's telling you about Jesus' life. Okay? And Paul is opening it up for the Romans because I showed you guys in Rome, well, I told you about it. He says that the Romans are put in place by God. Keep obeying your earthly masters as you do to Christ. Jesus says, if you get slapped, turn the other cheek. That works great for slavery, right? Says if your master tell you go 1 mile, go 2. This is text. You have to be able to understand what's the bigger picture here, okay? So at any rate, I'm going to wrap it up this way. Hebrew scriptures, the Greek scriptures, and you can understand the literature that's involved, because when you go to the Dead Sea Scrolls and you hear from the followers, and they had a leader called the righteous teacher, they want to go into Rome and tear Rome apart, right? They were the 12 disciples, but they want to go and put Rome on their back. But then you get the writings from the Gospels, and it's all beautiful. It's literature. Raising the dead. That's not something that the Messiah was supposed to do. That's why the Jews, which they say Jesus was a Jew, they don't accept him. You see that? I'm just kindly trying to lay out how this works. You can research it for yourself. You can disagree, whatever you like. But I'm just trying to leave this on record for people who are looking, who see some weird things and they want to know more. I want to thank you guys for tuning in today. This has been a great moment. I'm sorry I couldn't get into the comments, but we have other shows today, and I went well over my time. I did not expect to do all of this. Yes, the book of Enoch, that's a whole nother story, you know? Yes, Paul was Saul, but when he converted, right, he became Paul. That's a whole different discussion that we could have too. Thank you guys who took the time to like, share. Those who subscribe. Yes, Henry Clark. Thank you, Brian. Right? Henry Clark, you can check him out, but he says that, you know, Jesus was not a real person. Well, he could have been a person that was, let's say in our time, he had followers, right? He was like an influential person. Then over time, they added all of these stories to him and made him a myth. That's what basically Henry Clark is saying. I think you guys should take some time to check it out. All right. So it's been a long show. And I just want to thank you guys so much for, that's right, Empress, religion has destroyed man, right? You can't even find yourself. And by the time you figure it out, your better days might be behind you. You know, that's just what I experienced. I'm very thankful to what I learned in Egypt. I learned so much. I'm just going to rehash it really quick. The tree of life is in Egypt. The tree of life, the keys to death are in Egypt. Everlasting life is in Egypt. Double Ankh. Also, I call it the Ankhs that are side by side but together. That's reincarnation. You come back from the dead. The whole concept of circumcision came out of Egypt. The Hebrews learned that from the Egyptians, right? That was very important in the Hebrew faith, okay? You have the Judgment Day that came out of Egypt. There's just so much that came out of Egypt. It's not even funny, you know? Also, if you didn't convert to Christianity, you die. They kill you. It became a state religion, okay? Very important for you to know that, okay? That a lot hinges on that whole concept, because the way you get introduced to any religion is usually soft, right? But that's not the case. And when they made it the state religion, I actually saw that in Rome, and I had a chance to see it in Egypt to be explained by very good teachers. But the point is, for those that refused to convert to Christianity, their limbs were cut off and they were set on fire. Yeah. Think about that, right? Okay, you want to think about that, right? So much more to talk about, but we don't have enough time. But I did cover so much. I actually bought the Tree of Life. I bought the Judgment Day scene. So I'm going to be sharing a lot of that. By the time you realize, like even like this last point, the Jews did not accept Jesus, right? Because he did not fit the mold of the Messiah. Okay, you have to research that on your own time. Okay, all right. But here's the key part. When it came to the Hebrews and the Jews, now they have all this influence. We know because they built the temple of Horus, and I had a chance to check it out. But one of the things about that the Jews did not accept about Jesus is that he was healing and raising the dead. Well, that concept about healing and miracles came from Horace. Okay, so you follow that? And that's why I told you guys in the book of Mark, when it talks about when those scriptures were added, talking about you could tread on poisonous snakes and things that won't harm you. That's what Horace, that's what his key feature was. He had the ability to heal people and you could tread on poisonous snakes, okay? There's so many other things that were synonymous between Jesus and Horace. But obviously the Greeks realized how powerful these gods were to controlling people in Egypt. And a lot of these people believe with all their heart. And we have no problems looking back now and saying, oh, these are all myths. How could they believe such a thing? These people must be crazy. And then the Greeks and the Romans, they handed people another god, but they tried to make him a man. Or they made the god from a man. We don't know, right? That's very debatable. But manipulation is a real thing, folks. And I can't knock people for what you believe because I've always believed in religion too. I'm not here to knock anybody. We're just having this discussion about some of the things that I've learned. If you can profit from it, then so be it. But if not, that's okay too. But either way, I want to thank you for your time. We've been here for a long time today. You could have been anywhere, but you chose to be here with me having a discussion about, and don't get me started on the Mormons and the magical plates. Thank you for your comment though, Ricky. But the Mormons and the magical plates, it just goes on and on, you know? Or what about Scientology? The real point of the matter is every time one person leaves a religion, there's another 2 or 3 going right in. You will always, in the scriptures, right? You know how Jesus says, according to the Bible, you will always have the poor. Well, you always have people willing to try to find a sacred place one way or another. The Book of Slaves. All right, Phil, thank you. Thanks for all you do. Thank you to all the moderators that were here today too. Thank you, New Jerseyan. Thank you, Empress. I see you a lot. I thank you for all your support. You're like one of my top supporters these days. That's so amazing. All right. All right. So thank you very much. Well, we'll see you tonight at 7 p.m. with criminal defense attorney Calvin Johnson. In conclusion, I just want to say this is not some sort of jab at people who you have the right to believe in anything you want to. I've been in that seat and I do truly understand. But today we just wanted to have a discussion about the history of man and some of the things that man has believed and also how man has dominated man to injury and manipulating other humans to get other assets out of them just by trying to control the mind. Because religion is the lens, right? It's the lens through which men see their God. And he that controls the God, right? He controls the man. I thank you.
Different voices, but the same song. Living in a world where we all belong. Can you see the way, breaking the chains? In the symphony of love, the thing remains. Embracing diversity, brighter days in sight. Walking the world, sharing love and light. Hearts beating as one in our peaceful flight. Colors of harmony, painting the night. United we stand in love's pure might. Watching the world sharing love and light. Hearts beating as one in our peaceful flight. The colors of harmony, painting the night. United we stand in love's pure might.
Well, that was something else. So I'm gonna wrap this up. Hope you enjoyed the show.
Just when I thought I couldn't find my way out, yeah, I search the God in me to find my way out. I know it can seem way out, but the Creator flows to and through me from way out. I'm talking way out, way out. Yeah, yeah, yeah. See if you believe